upside down, a rush like I've not felt before. I can't trust myself, I need you to make it turn. I know. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me? We won't leave it to chance. We can't wait on romance. We'll never be the same again. I could keep the light from turning into darkness. You'd be my escape. While we've been so easy to unfold, future might seem every spot we're getting close. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me? We won't leave it to chance. We can't wait on romance. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me? We won't leave it to chance. We can't wait on romance. We'll never be the same You can turn my world upside down, a rush like I've not felt before. I can't trust myself, I need you to make it turn. I know. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me? We won't leave it to Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again.
You're streaming with the Fantasy Follow. What's up, everybody? Welcome to TFF Live, a special edition of TFF Live. We're calling this Saturday Stars. The purpose of tonight's show is not necessarily a start-sit list, but going through the top matchups for all of the action in Week 13 starting tomorrow. And we got a great week of fantasy football. There have been no games played. So everybody's starting out at a 0 standpoint. So it's a great way to get that playoff push going. Excited for a big day of football tomorrow. Don't forget, we'll put up our promo right away. You can join us tomorrow on the TFF Live Sunday pregame show. That's our main show. Tonight's kind of a special additional show, but we're with you every Sunday at 12 noon, taking you right up until game time, answering all your fantasy football questions, getting you ready for your matchups each week. Let's put up the, where we got here. Here is the notification. We are answering your fantasy football questions all show, so jump in the live chat. We got plenty of content to go through with you, but we will get to your chats as soon as we can. That's what we're here for, and that's what we love to do. And right away, we welcome back Trust the Process Football Talk. Back with us again. Welcome one of our regular viewers. And you say boom. I think that boom was for the start of the show since I had a little bit of setup issues. Get things going here, but we're up and running. And you say, I'm looking forward to Browns versus Titans tomorrow. Well, I have to say that, as always, as up in Buffalo here, Bills Mafia, I have to say the game I'm looking forward to most is the Bills playing in Arizona against San Francisco, a little bit different Monday night game. But, yeah, I definitely think that Browns-Titans an interesting game of two top records in the league. We'll see what happens. I'm looking at the lineup here to see what time that game actually plays at, and that is a 1 p.m. game. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. A lot of good games to watch tomorrow. All right, so again, we'll put up the notification real quick, letting you know if you're new to the stream or if you're a regular viewer. Either way, jump in the live chat. We got plenty of content, and we enjoy giving that to you, but we'd much rather be talking with you. So hit us up with the chat, any of your fantasy football questions, or just let us know how you're doing in your leagues, and we will get right along to those. In the meantime, before we get started with our Saturday Stars, let's go through and get a little bit of news, a couple of headlines around the league right now. Starting out of Las Vegas, it's going to be Josh Jacobs is going to be out for the Raiders this weekend. We hope that you jumped on that waiver wire, as we talked about in our waiver wire video, and possibly picked up Devontae Booker. It does look like Booker most likely is going to be the guy getting the bulk of the workload in that backfield for Las Vegas. And we did hear from John Gruden yesterday talking about the prospects in that running back core, and let's hear what he had to say.
Well, he's going to get the start. He's a good player. He's proven that he can carry the ball, catch it, and pass protect. And we'll see Theo Riddick for the first time. He's back off of the virus. And Jalen Richard, who's been out for the last couple games, hopefully is ready to go as well. So we're excited about Book and Riddick and Jalen returning to the lineup.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting there to me. I think the guy that I'm most concerned with in terms of the workload to Booker is actually Jalen Richard. We've seen him get quite a bit of work already when he was healthy and he's been out injured. I have a feeling that potentially he just was not coming back from injury, because there really wasn't a need. So we'll see about if he's really has a lot of issues going into that game tomorrow. And then, again, we're looking at the game time for that one. That is in New York, and that is a 1 p.m. game. Again, Josh Jacobs out. We expect Devontae Booker to get the bulk load of the work there. All right, next headline we got for you is in Atlanta. Julio Jones and Todd Gurley, both questionable for their game tomorrow. And that game is looking for the game time here. That is a 1 o'clock window game against New Orleans. New Orleans took it to them pretty bad the last time. It'll be interesting to see what happens. That was just a couple of weeks ago. Julio Jones, I know the reports are that he feels good. I have a feeling that Julio Jones has been more injured than we know all season long. As someone who has Julio on one of my lineups in a league where I'm safe for the playoffs right now, I certainly wouldn't mind if he sat one more week and got healthy so that he didn't end up starting a game and then leaving midway through. We've seen that a couple of times. With Todd Gurley, hard to say what's going to happen there. Brian Hill filled in last week and did not do much. In fact, ended up getting out-touched by Ito Smith. So some scenarios to watch there. If you have either of these players in your lineup, certainly something to keep an eye on in that game tomorrow. All right, the Detroit game, Kenny Golladay out again. DeAndre Swift is doubtful in that game. Kenny Golladay has not played since week 8. So certainly it will be nice to have him back sometime soon. But with all of the changes we've seen in Detroit, my worry here is that Kenny Golladay may very well be on the shelf for the rest of this season. I don't know where they're going, and I think they're kind of committed to, seeing where they're at with some of their younger players at this point. I get the feeling that Kenny Golladay very likely may end up on the shelf and not seeing any more action for the rest of this year, just to make sure they don't end up with any more injuries out of him. It's been an injury-riddled season for him. I certainly hope that's not the case, as I have Golladay in a few spots. I would love to have him back. I know I've seen him actually dropped by another player in one of my leagues at this point. I am concerned. I think Swift will come back and play. Looks like he's back from concussion protocol, but it looks like the reason why he's missing this game is more so an illness and possibly wanting to give him some work during practice time because he hasn't practiced much up until this game. So it looks like they're going to hold him out, let him get a little bit more healthy, and then hopefully I expect him to be back and get a little bit more work this season. And then we've got Zach Ertz for the Philadelphia Eagles has been activated from IR. This is an interesting one to me because I know I have Ertz in a couple of spots this year and it hasn't been great. I've tried with Dallas Goedert. It's been a little bit of a mess for everybody in Philadelphia, including Wentz, everything that's going on there. But Ertz has been activated. Don't know exactly what that means for this week, except for potentially muddling things up some more. But we did hear from Doug Peterson yesterday, and he was talking a little bit about the usage that he expects Zach Ertz to have when he does return to that lineup.
Yeah, if Zach is able to go, I think you got to be smart with him. Just like we have with guys that have returned to play a little bit, especially guys that are in these skill spots that are running a ton and can become fatigued throughout the game. We got to be smart with him, but I think he gives obviously a boost to the passing game. He's obviously a target of Carson's and something that we've had success with that. But yeah, we'll take it slow with him, but it'll be a nice lift to get him back out there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't personally expect Ertz to be getting a lot of work in this first game. I don't know, what to expect there. Philadelphia, obviously, they're still in the hunt in that division, which has been awful this year. We will see what happens there. I think, if anything, Dallas Goedert probably sees a little bit more of your work in terms of fantasy productivity. But obviously, if you've been waiting on Zach Ertz all season, that you hope that he gets back into that lineup and things start to turn around. I'm sure, Philadelphia fans just in general hoping for things to start to turn around at this point. It has been rough. But that is your headlines, or those are your headlines, I should say, if I can talk in proper English. And again, we will put up the reminder and let you know live chat is open, answering your fantasy football questions all show long. We got plenty of content for you, but what we love to do is talk fantasy football with you guys. So let me get on here and let's start out. I see a lineup question here from Stefan X. I see a couple of comments from Trust the Process and Blue Crew, so we will get to these in order if we can. Starting out with Stefan X. Miles Sanders or Michael Thomas at flex? This is an interesting one. Stephen X, thanks for being with the live stream. Looks like you might be new to the stream, so we welcome you. Let's do what we can to see if we can get you some information for these games. Let's start out with a little bit of comparison here. So Miles Sanderson-wise, here are fantasy points currently being allowed to the running back spot. I personally do like Miles Sanders in this game. Philadelphia playing at Green Bay. That's a 4:25 game. And as you look on the left side of your screen, Green Bay currently allowing the third most fantasy points to running backs. I will say it has been interesting when I started researching some of these stats. There are certain players that I have on lineups that I'm more familiar with than others. I will say Miles Sanders is not one of them. So in kind of researching his stats and looking at the kind of the drop-off in usage he's had, I can't understand with all the issues Philadelphia's had. To me, Miles Sanders is one of their best players. They got to get him going. This weekend is a prime opportunity. I know Boston Scott's been in that lineup, and he's had some production there. But to me, you got to have Miles Sanders, your bell cow, your best player in that backfield. You got to get him going if you're going to hope to start to turn things around with that team. So I like Sanders. I think it's a great matchup. Obviously, as you see on the left side of your screen, the third most fantasy points to running backs. I think they have to go to him. The production and the usage, is a concern. Compare that over on the wide receiver side. Michael Thomas, New Orleans playing at Atlanta. That's a 1 p.m. game. So Atlanta currently giving up the fourth most fantasy points to wide receivers. I can't say that I'm not concerned with Michael Thomas, not because of him, but because of Taysom Hill at quarterback. Still no passing touchdowns yet for Taysom Hill. This is an incredibly kind of tough decision, but I'm going to say, Stefan, if you are looking at these two in your flex, I would say you probably have a good shape with the rest of your lineup if you've been able to move these guys down. And actually, if that's the decision you have to make, hey, it's better to have that decision than for some people who are looking at this decision for, their wide receiver 1 spot or their running back 2 or 1 spot, whatever the case may be. To me, like, Sanders has the matchup, and I have to think they have to run the ball against Green Bay because that's where the Packers are most vulnerable. To me, there's question marks with Thomas just because of Hill. We've seen Kamara's production be down considerably. You have to expect that New Orleans is going to try to run these gadget plays and try to just do what they can until Breeze gets back, and that potentially means a downgrade for Thomas. We did see Taysom Hill in that first game against Atlanta just pepper Michael Thomas with targets. So I know for me, I have Thomas in a couple of spots. I don't have the sort of a decision where I can sit him. I have to go with him. In your case, I would be interested to know, Stefan X, if you're still on the chat, let me know. I think what makes the decision here is this a PPR league or is this a standard league? To me, if it's a standard league, I think that's all the more reason to think Sanders. If it's a PPR league, I think it's all the more reason to lean Thomas. I know that's not a great, so to speak, answer on my part, but as I try to do with these most of the time is I do try to give out, not just my opinion, but also as much information to back that up. I think if it were me going with my gut, I might lean Sanders in this one. But again, you know your roster better than anybody. And as I always say, whichever guy you choose, I hope they crush it. But to me, I think either one of these guys has some question marks. I think the matchups are both there. You probably normally would trust Thomas a little more in this situation, but because of Taysom Hill, I think I might have to lean Sanders. But Stefan X, glad you're with us. Thank you for the question. Let us know how it goes, and I'll be watching these games as well to see how these work out for you. All right, let me get in here. Quick one from Trust the Process, and you say, who do you think will get the most fantasy points this week? Well, I'll tell you what, Dalvin Cook has been a great player for so many games at this point, and they're playing at home against Jacksonville. There's a good chance Minnesota plays with the lead in that game. I certainly don't think that he is a guy that you would look past. He's been at the top of that list several times. I would not be surprised to see Dalvin Cook having another big game. I think he's off the top of my head the first person that I think of. There are for sure some others who are probably in play as we go down this list, but you're looking at a guy who's getting all the volume. Another game that's potential there is Houston against Indy. Houston very bad against the run, but you've got a muddled up backfield there. I think off the top of my head, I would say Dalvin Cook. You can't go wrong with him at this point, but we will see what happens in these games for sure tomorrow. And let me see what else we got here. We got Blue Crew. Welcome back, Blue Crew. Glad to have you on our stream again. And let's see what we can do for you tonight. You say half-point PPR, pick 2, running back and a flex, Zeke, Claypool, or Devontae Booker. And you say thank you. And you also say thank you. And I say no, thank you for being here. All right, Blue Crew, so let's go through. And as we always do, let's go through and take a look at the different matchups. I have a gut answer to this one already. I'll tell you what that is in a moment, but I will give you a hint. It's the third person you mentioned. However, there are considerations to be made, certainly, for all these. So we'll start off with your first question, and that is Zeke. Dallas on the road, Tuesday night game at Baltimore on the left side of your screen. Left side of your screen. I'll get this straight. It's only almost midnight on the East Coast. We've only been on for like 20 minutes. I'm already slurring my words. What's going on? It's like the pregame show has started up here or something like that. All right, so Zeke playing against Baltimore. Baltimore currently allowing, they are 25th in the line of fantasy points to running back. So that is the 8th fewest fantasy points to the running back spot. Certainly Zeke has the talent. The matchup not as great this week. And, we've seen the issues that Dallas has been having on offense all year. Taking a look over at Chase Claypool, we put up the fantasy points to wide receivers. Claypool in the Monday night game, the early Monday night game at home against Washington. Washington has been pretty good on defense this year. As you see, 31st in terms currently of fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver spot. That is second fewest. Obviously, that matchup is not great. That leads us back to the running back screen, and we have Devontae Booker, who certainly should have been a very popular pickup off the waiver wire this week. I'm looking for a game time on this one. That's a 1 p.m. game tomorrow on the road against the Jets. The Jets currently allowing, where are we on the list here? Let's see, we'll find them. 11th most fantasy points, as you see, to the running back spot. So certainly of those three, I think the matchup is best for Booker. The only hesitation I'm going to say in picking Booker as the guy out of these three, I'm sorry, I'm picking 2. Even better. So I'm definitely picking Booker if I'm picking 2. Like I said, some slight concerns about Jalen Richard potentially taking some of that work in the backfield away from Booker. I would expect Booker to get the bulk load. But let me do this. Let's put up real quick before I continue. Let me run that clip again from John Gruden, because this might be helpful to kind of hear a little bit coach speak in terms of what they're thinking about there.
Well, he's going to get the start. He's a good player. He's proven that he can carry the ball, catch it, and pass protect. And we'll see Theo Riddick for the first time. He's back off of the virus. And Jalen Richard, who's been out for the last couple games, hopefully is ready to go as well. So we're excited about Book and Riddick and Jalen returning to the lineup.
So, Blue Crew, if that helps you out at all, I know sometimes coach speak, you don't know what to make of that, but it's certainly, to me, I think that Devontae Booker is a good choice here, and I will take a look at a couple of the stats that I already researched. The Jets currently allowing, as I said, the 11th most fantasy points to running backs. They're also, it's strangely enough, allowing the 11th fewest rushing yards in the league. So that matchup it's good in terms of fantasy. It's not quite as great in terms of the actual yardage. I was surprised when I looked that up. But that is the situation in that matchup. You would have to expect, coming off their performance last week, that Vegas wants to kind of turn things around. And that means probably playing with the lead and probably running the ball a whole bunch. So I definitely like Booker there. If I had to pick between those other two, I'm probably going to pick Zeke. And the reason why is that obviously neither one of those matchups are great. So again, when we talk these through, I usually look at 4 factors here: ability, volume, matchup, and game script. Zeke, we know, is obviously going to get the volume. I think he's the player that you trust. He was one of your very high, of course, draft picks. You're probably your first round draft pick. Of those two, if the matchups are both bad, I think I'm going to lean towards the guy that I trust more. Obviously, there are a lot of mouths to feed in Pittsburgh, and the matchup's bad. So who knows what happens with Juju Smith-Schuster, with Deontay Johnson. Do they end up running the ball more with Benny Snell? I think Zeke is probably the safer pick if I have to pick 2 there. Let me know, Blue Crew. I'm curious. You said pick 2 running back and a flex. So yeah, so I guess if I go 2 running backs here, that does fit what you need. So yeah, I'm going to say I would probably lean Zeke and Booker. As I always say, trust your gut. You know your roster, but I certainly hope whichever guys you pick crush it. But I think I like those two out of those choices. And thank you again, Blue Crew, another returning viewer. Glad to have all you guys back that have been on the streams before. We did a little bit of a later stream with this one tonight. One of the things, as I've said before, we're a brand new channel. So I've been kind of, the Sunday pregame show is kind of our mainstay. These other shows have kind of been just random, not necessarily only for this purpose, but it also, I've kind of, trying to see what time slots do people like. It seems like these late shows have been popular. And certainly, I want to be able to do shows when you guys are enjoying viewing them. So glad to have you regulars back. For those of you that are new, by all means, hit that subscribe button. Again, as a new channel, we don't necessarily always come up quite as high. So you regulars, you're usually able to find us based on those notifications. We want to make sure all of you new viewers are able to get the same. So thank you again, guys, and glad to have you on the stream. Next, we're going to go to Mary Dedon, another regular. Welcome back, Mary Dedon. And you say, Deebo Samuel, Raheem Mostert, or Robert Woods? All right, so let's do this. Let's put up some information on the left side of your screen. You've got two wide receivers there. So let's go with the wide receiver slate first. And this is fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. I will say I do like Deebo Samuel this week playing against my Buffalo Bills. That is the second Monday night game, 8:15 start on Monday. That game is technically a home game for San Fran, even though it's being played in Arizona. The matchup, the Bills on the left side of your screen allowing the 24th, so the 9th fewest fantasy points to a wide receiver spot. I think that matchup may not necessarily be the biggest factor in this game. I think they're going to work Deebo a lot as a wide receiver. Obviously, still no George Kittle there. I think he's going to see the bulk of the targets. I do think that they will probably, the Buffalo secondary will probably lock down a little bit on him. Tre'Davious White probably sees Deebo Samuel in this game. So that obviously is a factor, but I do like him. Let's take a look at Robert Woods in that Rams game. That is a 4 o'clock window game tomorrow. That is a home game for Arizona. That one actually is in Arizona. And if you take a look at the fantasy points being allowed by the Cardinals, they are allowing currently the 12th most. So they are on the left side of your screen, just above the halfway point. So that's a little bit better matchup there for Woods. I do think that of the two receivers for the Rams this weekend, I think I like Cooks. I'll get this straight. Cooper Kupp. I think I like Kupp a little bit better than Woods. I have a feeling that Woods may draw Patrick Peterson for the bulk of this game. However, we've seen Peterson be beat on a few occasions this year, so I don't necessarily think that means that Woods won't have some good value. And then taking a look at Raheem Mostert, again, playing against the Bills in terms of fantasy points, the Bills allowing the 10th most to the running back spot, so they are in the green on the left side of your screen. To me, of these three players, although I don't think any of these are bad choices, I think Mostert I like probably the best if I have to pick one out of these three. I do think that he's going to get the bulk of the work there. I do think San Francisco always wants to run the ball. And now that he is back, I think you're going to see him shine. I would have to say, especially Mary Dedon, if you are playing in I'm looking up here to see if there's any more information from you. If it is a non-PPR league, even more reason to go with Mostert. But I think either way, I think this is probably my pick out of these three guys. And I'm going to see a couple of follow-ups here from you. So I'm going to try to go through those before I move on to our next one. So first, let me get rid of our left side. And let me go to your follow-up. So here's your follow-up. You say Kyler Murray, James Robinson, Austin Eckler, Wayne Gallman, Mostert, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Sterling Shepard, Pittman Jr., Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd, Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel. Pick my lineup. That's a lot of players to go through. Well, let's do this. I can do this, and I'll do it quick. First of all, I need to know, let's see if you're still here. Okay, let me see this follow-up first. You say Bills have terrible run defense. Yes, and that's why I like Mostert here. You saw what Austin Eckler did. It sounds like you're thinking kind of the same thing that I'm thinking. But I'm going to go back over here to your lineup, and let's do a quick run-through. I'm not going to put up the stats on the left side of the screen because that will take me much longer to do this. At quarterback, you're starting Murray. No issues there. I'm going to assume this is a 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 flex. That's what I'm going to base this on. James Robinson for Jacksonville playing against Minnesota. James Robinson is my pick there. Austin Eckler is getting the bulk load of the work, a ton of targets from Justin Herbert. Looking for their game just to take a quick look at the matchup, and they are playing at home against New England. I think New England has been vulnerable to the run this year. I like Eckler as the second running back pick there. I will say on the wide receiver side, I don't think you can sit Stephon Diggs. I think he's been too good. I know San Fran is a tough defense, but I think you got to go with the guys that have been the best for you so far. A.J. Brown, I would pick A.J. Brown in that one against Houston. Not against Houston. Tennessee against Cleveland. Yes, I definitely like A.J. Brown. I don't think that matchup scares you away at all. That leaves us your flex. We already talked about your flex being Raheem Mostert would be my pick there. And then obviously you're not sitting Travis Kelce, so that is your tight end. And that is a very quick run through without putting up any stats. You can double check me to see if my stats make sense. But I think that is my quick run through of your lineup. And as always, I always say whatever players you pick, I hope they crush it. Thank you, Mary DeDon, for being back with us again. Let me move on. Let me see if there's anything else from follow-ups here. And you say, of course I'm here. Hey, I still got to thank you guys because listen, without you guys on the chat, like I can give you lots of content and go through all of your information, but I would much rather be talking with you guys than just talking to you guys. So thank you again, Mary DeDon, for being here. Appreciate all of our return viewers. All right, let's see who is next in line here. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. If I miss anybody along the way, just give me a holler. Just jump in the chat and say, hey, you missed one, and I'll go back and get it. It looks like the next one I see here is right here from Zach Conroe, and I believe, Zach, you're another return viewer, so thank you so much for being with us. Let's see what you say. You say, should I start Hurst or Schultz in a full PPR? I could also pick up Hooper or Rudolph from the waiver wire. So this is an interesting one. Let's go ahead and put up, since we're talking tight ends, we will put up fantasy points to the tight end spot, and we'll kind of go through and analyze these matchups. I've liked Hayden Hurst all year. I've been waiting for him to really break out, and it just hasn't quite happened yet. New Orleans defense has been very tough. They were all over Matt Ryan the last time they played. That being said, if Julio's not 100% healthy, those targets are going to go somewhere, and I think that means Hayden Hurst is in play. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many targets he had in that last game, but I don't know that he had a great game, but I don't know it was a terrible game either. So I don't hate Hurst here, but let's take a look at the other guys. Dallas is weird because, they're going to have garbage points in almost every game. Baltimore is a bad matchup. Let's see where they are on the list here again. They are 17th, so just in the bottom half in terms of fantasy points to the tight ends. I didn't go through fantasy points on the New Orleans side. They are, where are they at? 18th, so right about the same place in terms of matchup-wise. Between those two, Schultz, there's a lot of other mouths to feed there in Dallas. Hooper and Rudolph. Austin Hooper playing for Cleveland at Tennessee. Tennessee allowing the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends. So that is a better matchup. Kyle Rudolph, also a very nice matchup. I have him on my start list for tomorrow, and they are playing home against Jacksonville. No Irv Smith again in this game. He's out. So that means Rudolph is the guy there. Rudolph had a very nice game last week. In fact, I could tell you exactly what Rudolph did last week because I have it written down right here. Let's see here. You probably already know, but just in case for anybody else that wants the information on the stream, here it is. Last week, 8 targets, 7 catches, 68 yards. For Kyle Rudolph, that was 13.8 fantasy points. And again, playing against Jacksonville, currently allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. So your two guys that you have a chance to potentially pick up off the waiver wire have the better of those matchups. Do I think that Hurst or Schultz is that much more higher of a higher tier player than Hooper or Rudolph in this case? No, I don't. I think it's worth a shot at going for one of those matchups, whichever one you potentially like more. I do like Austin Hooper as a sneaky play tomorrow. He just doesn't have the stats to back it up. I have a feeling that Hooper sees the end zone tomorrow. That's just my gut. Last week, a big game to Jarvis Landry. I think there's going to be some passing available in that game. So I like Hooper there. And Rudolph has also not seen the workload throughout most of the season. But again, with Irv Smith out, that's a better situation for Rudolph in that game. Again, the situation there is Dalvin Cook, and the running game is going to take up a lot of the work. Same thing in Cleveland. The running game is going to take a lot of the work there. So it's kind of a toss-up between those two. I think either one it's probably an equal. As I said, the matchups are about the same. I think it's an equal choice. I don't think that Hurts or Schultz is that significantly much better than either one that you wouldn't possibly take a shot on the waiver wire. I don't know who you'd have to cut to do that, but I wouldn't cut Hurts. I think he has some decent matchups the rest of the way. I don't know for sure with Schultz's matchups. I haven't looked at those as much. But I think Hooper or Rudolph, I would say take a shot with one of those two guys, whichever one you like better of the two. I have a suspicion Hooper plays well, but he just doesn't have the stats to back it up. Rudolph does have the stats to back it up from the last game. I think either one is fine. As I always say, I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. But yeah, I would look to the waiver wire there, and I would go for one of those two guys. Take a look at your opponent. Find out if there's anything in that opponent's matchup that makes the difference for you. Are you playing somebody that's playing a Kirk Cousins? I'm sure you're not playing anybody that's playing a Baker Mayfield in most leagues right now, but perhaps there's a running back on the other side where, a high-scoring game might end up with points going your way. That would be my suggestion there. Thank you, Zach, again, for being with us again. Zach Connor, one of our regular viewers. We appreciate you here. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else on this list from you. This is where it gets tricky with more chats as I have to scroll through. Let's get rid of this on the left side of your screen. And you also say, I'm starting Mostert this week. I definitely agree with you, Zach. I think you're on track with that one. All right, let's get our next question up here. Let me scroll back up in the chat. And let's see. It looks like the next one here, let me know if I miss anybody, is from Sebastian. Let me know if I'm saying this correctly or incorrectly. Dorian. Could be Dorian, could be, I don't know. Doiron, it looks like to me. I don't know. Help me out, Sebastian. Let me know if Doiron is the correct way to say that. I will go ahead with your question, and if you hit me back in the chat, I'll try to make sure I'm saying it right. Welcome, Sebastian. Looks like you might be a new viewer, so glad to have you with us. And you say, hey, how's it going? It's going great. How are you doing? And you say, half-point PPR, pick 2 for a wide receiver and a flex. Tyler Lockett, Michael Thomas, Myles Gaskin, Devontae Booker. Interesting choices here nonetheless. Let's start with your wide receivers, and as we always do, let's put the matchups on the left side of your screen. Fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver spot, starting with that Seattle game at home against the Giants. Giants currently allowing 17th most fantasy points to wide receivers, so just at the halfway point. I do like Tyler Lockett tomorrow. I think there's been a lot of talk that DK might see a little bit more of the lockdown from that Giants secondary and that Tyler might break loose. However, Lockett has been more the boomer bust player this year, so this is going to come down to how safe of the floor are you looking to get. On the Michael Thomas side, playing against Atlanta. Atlanta is the better matchup. 4th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. It's a little bit of a toss-up when it comes to Taysom Hill. However, in the last game that these two teams played, Taysom Hill was peppering Michael Thomas. He seemed to be the only wide receiver he was looking for a while. To me, I think despite the question marks with Taysom Hill here, Thomas is your first-round pick. Tyler Lockett has been hit or miss. So I think of the two, Lockett is potentially the guy that could end up with a smaller game, whereas Thomas potentially is the safer floor, unless they simply don't throw the ball at all in this game. You just kind of have to hope that doesn't happen. If we see the same kind of volume that Thomas saw in the last game against the Saints, it's going to be going his way a lot. I think Thomas is the guy I would pick between those two. Move over to the running backs that you mentioned. We got Gaskin and Booker, and I will say right away before I look at the matchups, I do like both this weekend. Miami, looking for their game. I will find it. They are at home, 1 o'clock window against Cincinnati. Cincinnati currently allowing fantasy points to running back 16th, so right the halfway point. However, I will say this as I go over to my notes here. They are the halfway point in terms of fantasy points, but in terms of rushing yards, and this makes a difference here. Let's see, Cincinnati, they are the 3rd most rushing yards allowed in the league. So you would expect the yardage to be there. The points in terms of the matchup doesn't look quite as good, but I think that the yardage carries the day there. I certainly think Miami plays with the lead in that game, so there's going to be plenty of opportunity there. Perhaps you're worried about coming back from injury. However, a situation where he's being activated from IR, if he wasn't ready, they probably just wouldn't have brought him along. So I don't think that's a bad choice. Devontae Booker on the road against the Jets, another good matchup here. 11th most fantasy points to the running back spot. I think that, potentially there are no issues here other than does somebody else in that backfield get any of that work, and does it become more of a timeshare with Josh Jacobs out? I don't expect that to happen, but it's certainly a possibility. I think this is a coin flip. I probably lean towards Gaskin in this one because who else is Miami going to run? Patrick Laird in the backfield. You got to think that if Gaskin's healthy, if he wasn't healthy, why would they be bringing him into this game? Are these games both at 1 o'clock? Miami is at 1 o'clock. Yes, they are. So you're pretty much going to have to make that matchup before that first game happens. I probably lean Gaskin. I think either one of those guys is a fine pick here. So I guess if you're asking me for my picks, again, I will always give you my opinions and try to back it up with some information to help you make that decision and hope that whichever guy you pick crushes it as always. But I think my 2 picks here are going to be Thomas and Gaskin. And let me see if there are any follow-ups here. And yes, I do see a follow-up. Perfect pronunciation. I don't even remember what I said. Let me try to get D-O-I-R-O-N. Doiron. I don't know. I might have, if I got it right the first time, I shouldn't have even tried again the second time. Let me see your follow-ups here. Also, would you play Miles Sanders over Devontae Booker or Myles Gaskin or Kenyon Drake? Yes, over Kenyon Drake. I've been down on him all year. I think that I'm looking at the matchups here. Arizona against the Rams. Rams a tough defense. I don't have the matchup on the left side of my. In fact, let's put the matchup back up on the left side of the screen. The Rams currently, where are they? Fantasy points to running backs. Let's see. Where do we see them? 27th, so 6th fewest. So that's a bad matchup. I like Sanders in this game. Philadelphia, that's a 4 o'clock game. Green Bay, 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. Devontae Booker, we mentioned already. Myles Gaskin, we mentioned already. What you're concerned with here is Sanders' usage has gone down for some strange reason. This has got to be a turnaround game for Miles Sanders. If Philadelphia is going to have any chance moving forward, they have got to get their run game going. The pass protection is terrible for Carson Wentz. They've got to have a reason to keep those defenses off of him, and that reason is being able to run the ball. I don't understand, other than game script, why they haven't been doing that. I like Sanders here. I think that, it's like if you had seen a game last week from Booker or Gaskin, to know for sure that they have the clear-cut edge, then I might consider otherwise. But to me, it's Sanders. He's a main guy. He's a guy you drafted high. I think you lean on that guy in this spot. But again, as I always say, I hope that whoever you pick absolutely crushes it. And let me look for any other follow-ups here. I see one more. Also, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, or Ryan Fitzpatrick. I have not seen an update on Tua to know if Ryan Fitzpatrick is for sure playing. Lamar Jackson obviously is slated to play, but has been out for a while with protocol. To me, of those 3, Kyler Murray is the guy you go with. That is a Monday night 8 o'clock game. I'm sorry, that's Sanford. I keep thinking because they're playing in Arizona. That's a Sunday 105. Let's put up the matchups to help us out here. Quarterbacks. So Baltimore playing at what time does Baltimore play? Tuesday, 8 o'clock game, home against Dallas. Dallas allowing the 11th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. Kyler Murray, that is a 4 o'clock game against the Rams. The Rams allowing, the very least. Well, maybe I'll take this back. This is why I put up these left side matchups. The fewest fantasy points to the quarterback spot, and then Fitzpatrick for Miami if he does play against Cincinnati. Cincinnati currently allowing 16th, so right in the middle. Well, let's say this. The matchup is there for Jackson. Jackson's the guy you drafted high. If you have Murray, perhaps you drafted them both high, or perhaps you were able to get a trade throughout the season. I will go back on what I originally said here. My gut told me Murray because Jackson's been kind of hit or miss this year, but that's a great matchup. I don't know how you go against Dallas here. And potentially does he, add some rushing yards to that? Of course, Kyler Murray potentially adds that as well. Murray's been a little bit banged up. Who knows if that has anything to do with his production in recent weeks. And also, I feel that the uptick that Kenyon Drake has seen is directly related to them being a little hesitant to let Kyler Murray run it quite as much as he was. So I would say I like the matchup. Obviously, the best for Lamar. He's the guy you drafted high. Let's flip the script on what I said first, and let's go Lamar Jackson here. But again, go with your gut. check out where things are at when the games start. Keep an eye on your reports, especially make sure Jackson, is able to clear. Obviously, if you get stuck waiting until Tuesday and then for some reason he can't play, keep a close eye on that information, to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a bad spot there. And again, I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. Sebastian, I'm going to try this last name one more time. Doiron is what I'm going with there. I think I might have got it right. I hope I got it right. But again, thank you for being here. It looks like you might be a new viewer. So by all means, glad to have you on the stream and look forward to having you on future live streams as well. All right. Let's see. Mary Dedon says, I literally picked the same lineup as you did. Awesome. That's good. I like it when things work out that way. Let me look up a little bit higher here, see if I missed any other questions. I do see one that I don't think I've gotten to yet here, and that is from Thomas. Here, let me get rid of this left side. Thomas, Medina or Medina? I'm going to say Medina. I could be wrong. Let me know if Medina is correct, but that's the one I'm going with. Again, Thomas, looks like you're a new viewer to the stream, so welcome, and let's see what you have to say. Tight end, Dallas Goedert or Jordan Reed, please advise. Oh my goodness, I'm going to try this. Gracias desde Panama. I took Spanish in high school and in college. I can't say I've hardly used it since then, but if that means that you are watching from Panama, then glad to have you with us, and I hope that I didn't, make the worst of that Spanish that I tried to go with there. Let me see if there's anything down lower. All right, let's go ahead and put up on the left side of our screen our helpful stats in terms of matchups. Fantasy points to the tight end spot. Dallas Goedert playing at, let's see, where are they at? 4 o'clock window on the road against Green Bay. Green Bay currently allowing, they are pretty low, 28, the 5th fewest fantasy points to the tight end position. Jordan Reed, I like this matchup for San Francisco against Buffalo. Buffalo has been a little bit more vulnerable to the tight end spot. We saw Hunter Henry have a nice game last week against them. If you look on the matchup side to the left of your screen, 6th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. I think the tight end gets a little bit muddled there potentially in Philadelphia with Zach Ertz coming back, and they still have Richard Rodgers there. Who knows how they mix that up? Are they going to try to work Ertz in slowly? Are they going to get him more work? Jordan Reed, obviously there have been injury concerns in past years, but Jordan Reed has seen some nice production. I have some stats on him. 6 targets each of the last 2 games for Jordan Reed. And against Buffalo, Buffalo has allowed 11 or more fantasy points 6 times this year. I like Reed between these two. That would be my choice. The Philly tight ends have been confusing to me all year. Not saying it can't be a good game for Goddard, but I think Reed is the pick here. He has the matchup edge and not as many concerns with the volume. So I think Reed is the pick here. And by all means, like I always say, I hope whichever guy you picked crushes it. But I think that Jordan Reed is a fine choice. And again, Thomas Medina, thank you for being with the stream. And again, any of you guys that are new on the stream, we are so glad to have you with us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Glad you found us tonight, but we know that we are a newer channel, so you probably had to work a little harder to find us in that search. So we're glad you're with us. We want to make sure you get those notifications when we have future shows, as most of our regulars are able to get with these shows. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. And again, we appreciate you so much for being on the streams. All right, I'm going to scroll down. I do see news here from Trust the Process, and this is how I felt as well. Gurley and Julio both expected to play. Obviously, you've got to keep an eye on things. By all means, you'd much rather be playing Todd Gurley than Brian Hill. Not a good week last week for Brian Hill. Ito Smith took a lot of that work away. We will obviously see what happens there. Here's a new chat from Builder 1K, just like Powerman 5000 or Powerman 4000, whatever the name of that band was. I like the Builder 1K. Welcome back. I know you're a return viewer, so glad to have you back on our live stream. You say, is Chris Carson and Wayne Gallman a good start? Let's put up the stats. I definitely like Carson. I can't say that I've looked into Gallman as much as of yet, but let's take a look at both. Seattle home against the Giants. Same game, 4 o'clock for both of these. All right, so the New York Giants allowing the 14th most fantasy points to the running back spot. I certainly think Carson is one of your main guys every week, week in and week out, almost an auto start. Wayne Gallman on the flip side of that, Seattle currently allowing the 15th. So they are right in the same range. I think they are both fine starts. I'm going to see if there's any follow-ups here because I'm not sure who you might be thinking of sitting in order to playing one of them. I'm going to pop this in really quick because I like this one. Awesome advice. Medina, like funky cold Medina. I like it. Perfect. I said Medina because there's a town near me. I live in Buffalo, New York. There's a town near me called Medina, so that's why I went with that one. But funky cold Medina, I'll remember that, Thomas. Hopefully next time you're on the stream. I wish I had the rights to play that music. I would run that music right now if I could. I don't have the rights to that. All right, let's go back to Builder 1K. So I guess my question here, if you're still in the chat, hit me up with a follow-up here, Builder 1K, and answer me. Are you asking if you are starting these two over somebody else, or are you asking me if you're starting one of these guys over the other? I'm going to answer it as though you're asking which of these two guys you should start. If it were me, I'd go with Chris Carson here. Certainly both of these guys are going to get volume. Carson is your main guy. Carson's a guy you trust all year long. You go to your guys, especially when you're making this playoff push. Nothing would be worse than taking a shot on Wayne Gallman and having Chris Carson hit a huge game. You certainly you feel a lot worse if it goes that way. If it goes the other way around, so be it, because Carson is that guy you've been trusting all year long. I like Carson in that spot, and I see another follow-up here. Justin Herbert or Mitchell Trubisky. Let's put up the matchups. My gut says Herbert all day on this one, but I'm going to take a look at the matchups just in case there's something that I'm not thinking of. Chargers home against New England. 4:00 game. Shouldn't be any weather issues there. New England, fantasy points to the quarterback spot. Not great. 24th. That's the 9th fewest. On the other side of that, Chicago playing at home against Detroit. Detroit matchup advantage there. 7th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. However, again, I always talk about with these decisions, you're thinking about 4 things: talent, volume, matchup, game script. To me, Justin Herbert is far ahead the higher tier player between these two. With Trubisky, you kind of don't know what you're going to get. Herbert has been very consistent, even though last week was probably, potentially the lowest game he's had in a while. It's not like he crushed you. If they happen to get that garbage touchdown that they should have gotten at the end of the game against Buffalo, then he would have still got you over 20. I think he was around 17. He would have got you right around 20, 21. To me, I trust Herbert here in this game. If you really love the matchup and you feel like you need the points, I think, let's see, when do these games play? Chargers a 4:00 game, and on the other side of that, Chicago is a 1:00. So you're going to have to make that matchup before the games start. To me, you trust Herbert here. He's been too good all season long. Trubisky playing in his second game after not playing at all. I like Herbert there as the choice of those two. But again, as I always say, whichever guy, I hope you crush it. Let me see your follow-up here. James White is the third option. Yeah, to me, let's do this. And I'll put it this way. In terms of the running backs you mentioned, I would rank them in this order. I would put Carson first, Gallman second, and White third. Just because on the New England side, you never know what they're going to do. There's Damian Harris back there. They've been flirting with saying that they were going to start up. Who am I thinking of here? Who's their third running back? Somebody help me out in the chat. I'm drawing a complete blank right now. You know who I'm talking about. The guy starts with an S. Think of it. It's only 12:21, and I'm already at this point not even able to think of these things. Now it's bothering me. I'm going to look this up. I know. What am I, an idiot? Like New England's Sony Michel. Someone probably already hit me up in the chat. Yeah, there's too many guys there, and you don't know what Belichick's going to do. Carson first. Sony. Yep, you got it. Sony Michel. See, I knew you got it before me. To me, Carson's number 1 there. Gallman's 2, and James White is 3. And Mary Dedon, you say James White is second option. Other dude got hurt. That is what I'm not aware of. If you're talking about Damian Harris potentially is hurt, I may have seen a note about that. Even so, I probably wouldn't move. I probably still wouldn't move White ahead of those other guys. I'm looking here. I don't see a note that says Damian Harris is out. Sony Michel has not played a lot since he's been back from IR. Even so, I think Carson's your guy there. All right, let me get thank you again for all the questions, Builder 1K. Thank you for being with us again, all you guys so far. Doing my best to not miss anybody's questions. So if I do, just let me know as I scroll back up. Obviously, going through these chats, you kind of got to scroll back and forth to find the right stuff. So I am going to make sure. It looks like the next one I haven't gotten here yet is from Ethan. Another name, you're going to have to tell me if I say it right. I'm going to take a shot, and I'll have you tell me if I say it right. Melius. Ethan Melius. Looks like you're a new viewer to our live stream, so welcome, Ethan. Please let me know if I said that last name right. You say A.J. Brown or DeAndre Hopkins, full PPR. Let's put up wide receiver points, fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. I think that either one of these two is going to be just fine. However, Hopkins I'm trying to get back on my screen here. Here we go. Arizona, Hopkins playing, what time do they play against the Rams? 4 o'clock. Probably certainly the tougher matchup, the toughest matchup you have. Jalen Ramsey is probably up against him for most of this game. Still, DeAndre Hopkins is going to get his. I can't imagine that he doesn't. He's one of those probably guys you would consider matchup proof. Nonetheless, the Rams, the fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot, so that is concerning. A.J. Brown, that is a 1 p.m. game tomorrow at home against Cleveland. By far the matchup advantage here. Cleveland allowing the 11th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. You know, to me, I would have a very difficult time sitting DeAndre Hopkins ever. If this is a straight sit question for you where you would not potentially be playing both of these guys in any way, shape, or form, be it through a one at the wide receiver and one at your flex, like perhaps you have a running back in your flex that you can flex out and get both these guys in. If you have to go straightly by the matchup, it's A.J. Brown. I can't believe that I could possibly ever suggest sitting DeAndre Hopkins, but perhaps that your lineup is that stacked that you have the luxury to be able to do that. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to play well, but A.J. Brown does have the better of those two matchups. So if I have to pick one of these guys to sit, I probably have to pick, much as I don't want to, A.J. Brown of these two. But again, as I always say, I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. And let me know, Ethan Melius, if I said your name right. But again, thank you for being with the stream, and hope to see you again always on future streams. All right, we got a question here from Nate the Great. Let me get rid of this left side. And you say Alvin Kamara or Devontae Booker? Devontae Booker, again, we'll put the matchups up. Booker playing at 1 p.m. on the road against the Jets. The Jets, great matchup here, 11th most fantasy points to the running back spot. Alvin Kamara playing on the road, 1 p.m. against New Orleans. New Orleans, the fewest fantasy, I'm sorry, that's backwards. Atlanta. He plays for New Orleans. I should know that. I have him on a couple of rosters. Atlanta, they are allowing, where are they? Help me out here, guys. 30th. So it's not a great matchup either. Third fewest fantasy points to the running back spot. Just taking the matchups out of the equation here. This is my thought with this comparison and this question. Can you drafted Alvin Kamara as your number one pick? Can you sit him for somebody that you picked up off the waiver wire? Where are you at? Is this a must-win situation to make your playoffs? Kamara's workload has been way down with Taysom Hill and is probably going to be way down again tomorrow. I just don't think there's any way around that. It takes a lot of, what I'm going to say to start Devontae Booker over Alvin Kamara. Try to keep it clean as possible, but it takes a lot of, let's say, guts to start Devontae Booker over Alvin Kamara. However, if you are in a must-win situation and you feel like you can make that choice, the matchup is clearly in favor of Booker. Kamara, I shouldn't say Kamara is going to get the bulk load there because Latavius Murray has gotten a lot of work. The more you continue to think this through, the more reasons you could find yourself starting Devontae Booker between these two. I just don't know how in the world, if it was me, I could ever pull Alvin Kamara from my lineup just simply because of who he is. However, I will say I don't think it's the worst move ever to think about playing Devontae Booker against the Jets. You almost guarantee that they're going to have the lead. They're going to be running the ball. Hard to imagine it doesn't go that way. So, yeah, I mean, it is rough to sit Alvin Kamara, but I know where you're coming from and thinking about this choice. And if you're in a must-win situation, then potentially you might be making this move. I have Alvin Kamara in one spot this year in one of my lineups, and I'm not in a situation where it's like in that particular league where it's like a must-win. So I don't feel nearly as bad about leaving him in there. But if you're in a must-win situation, yeah, potentially you might have to do it. The best information I can give you is Yes, the matchup is way better for Booker. And yes, you're right to be thinking about making this change because of what Kamara has done in the past couple of games. So I do see Mary Dedon says, I will go with Booker. He has a lot of upside, and the Raiders are going to be up the whole game. They're going to run it. I agree. Those are definitely all legitimate reasons to be thinking about. It's just so tough to sit Kamara, but I don't think you're wrong for potentially making that switch. So yeah, by all means, go with your gut. I hope whichever guy you choose crushes it, and especially hope if you make that gutsy play and take Devontae Booker, I hope he ends up winning that matchup for you. I would hope that for anybody who's going to make that option happen. All right, let me see who's next here. Thank you again, Nate the Great, for your question. We appreciate all you viewers for being with us on the stream, and awesome to be able to start all of this fantasy football talk with you guys. Let's see here. I'm going to go to Mary Dedon real quick because that looks like it's next in line. I want to see if my opponent is starting the right people. Can you pick his lineup for me? I will do my best. Let's see here. I'm reading through all first. Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Devontae Adams, Riley, Calvin. I'm assuming that's Calvin Ridley, Josh Allen, Robert Tonyan, Juju, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson. All right, so it's Watson in the quarterback spot. That's a simple one. And it's Tonyan in the tight end spot. Nick Chubb, you got to be starting Nick Chubb. I can't imagine him not being your starter. And you got to be starting Dalvin Cook. Zeke Elliott, will keep that as a potential thought for your flex. Devontae Adams, I'm not gonna put up the matchups for all of these. I'm gonna go through them just quickly. Philadelphia, nothing scares me there. Defense lead, Devontae Adams is your guy there. Ridley, I don't see any reason not. Well, I shouldn't say that. New Orleans is a tough D, but I like Ridley. I'm probably starting him over Juju. Potentially McLaurin. No, playing against Pittsburgh, I'm not starting McLaurin over Ridley. So Adams and Ridley are my two wide receivers that I would pick there. I guess I might have spoken too soon on quarterback. Josh Allen, you could make a case for over Watson. I think, I don't know. That is actually a tough one. Watson now without Fuller, that's a little bit of a toss-up. I could see either one of those being the starts without actually looking at the matchups. I think either one of those is about equal to me. In that flex spot, it comes down to me, Elliott or Gibson. And certainly Washington playing at Pittsburgh. That's not a great matchup without even looking at the numbers. I'm not going to check it real quick, but Elliott's matchup, let's see, Dallas, where are they? Against Baltimore, also not a great matchup. To me, Gibson is, tough as it is to say, Gibson's been the better player between him and Elliott. Without looking at actual matchup numbers, and this is probably the best way to do this lineup deal is just kind of go with gut. I would pick Gibson over Elliott in that spot. So what I went with here is coin flip Watson or Allen. And then I said Chubb, Cook, running backs. I said Adams, Ridley, wide receivers, and flex, Antonio Gibson. See how many I got that match up with the rest of what you had. All right, let me go back up. And if there's a follow-up, Mary Dedon, I will probably see it further down the line because I know there are a lot of chats here. So I'm just going to try to go right in order of the ones that are here so that I don't miss anybody. Bill Romanowski, so glad to, again, Bill Romanowski, our most famous viewer, legend in the NFL, right here on the Fantasy Football, or on the Fantasy Follow, talking fantasy football with all of us. I love it. Bill Romanowski, glad to have you back. You say David Montgomery or Kareem Hunt. Close one here. I like both of these guys this week. Here's the slate on the left side of your screen for the matchups. So let's take a look. This is a very good matchup for Chicago. Detroit has not been good. As you see, the very most fantasy points allowed to the running back spot. Kareem Hunt for Cleveland at Tennessee, also a 1 p.m. game. Tennessee, the 7th most fantasy points to the running back spot. The difference here is two differences. Montgomery, it has the volume edge over Hunt. Obviously, Nick Chubb is there. Hunt, although I do like him and I do think he's going to be fine, we have seen his production go down just a little bit since Chubb has been back. I do think he will be fine in this game, but Montgomery has the clear volume edge. I think Hunt is probably, of these two players, the player that's been a little bit better this year. Montgomery hasn't been great, but he's got a great run of matchups. We saw him last week against Green Bay, 100 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be involved in the passing game. He's not going to cede work to anybody else more than likely unless Cordero Patterson gets the couple of gadget plays. Even though I like Hunt here, I probably have to pick Montgomery out of these two. I think the matchup is too good to not go with in that case. So I'm going to go with Montgomery there. Bill Romanowski, by all means, go with your gut. But I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. And thank you again for the chat. And thank you for being with us. Again, let me see, make sure there are not any follow-ups here before I move on from you, just to make sure I cover everything that you had. Nope, looks like that's everything. So, yeah, again, thank you for the question, Bill Romanowski. And I hope that your guy crushes it tomorrow. All right, Nate the Great. I don't know if I answered this in your other question, so I'm just going in order. And you say Allen Robinson or Terry McLaurin. Allen Robinson is a little bit banged up, but I think he is expected to play. I don't see any issue there. Let's put up the fantasy points to the wide receiver spot on the left side of your screen, playing against Detroit. The 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Terry McLaurin playing for Washington. That's a early Monday night game at 5 p.m. East Coast time. Playing at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh currently allowing, where are they? 16th. So right in the halfway spot in terms of fantasy points to the wide receivers. I like Allen Robinson between these two. I like Terry McLaurin as a player, but the matchup is hard to go against at this point, even though it's Mitchell Trubisky throwing him the ball, and sometimes you don't know what you're going to get there. I would pick Allen Robinson of these two. And again, as I always say, I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. But thank you for the question. All right, scroll down. Let me see where the next one here is. All right, let's see. Mary Dedon, you say Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams. We've still got the matchups up on your screen. So Kansas City at home against Denver. Denver allowing, let's see where they fall, 22nd most fantasy points. So they are in the bottom half. Devontae Adams, if you have this choice between these two players, you have a great team. So congratulations on either selection that you make. Green Bay, let's see, where do I find them? Home against Philadelphia. I suspect Philadelphia's matchup numbers are higher. Close, 19, right in the same ballpark. I like Devontae Adams as the safer floor of the two players. I think Tyreek Hill, although he's been great, still is going to have probably the more of the boom or bust qualities between these two without specifically looking at his numbers throughout the year to say that. Just me personally, I don't think either one of these is a bad choice. I think me personally, I probably would like Devontae Adams better, but I think either one of these choices you're going to be fine. So if I had to pick one, I would pick Devontae, but I think it's a situation where you can go with your gut and kind of go whichever one you like better of those two. And then you also asked Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara. This is Dalvin Cook all day to me. The matchup's better. Minnesota at home against Jacksonville. Put it up on the left side of your screen. Jacksonville, 5th most fantasy points to the running back spot. New Orleans playing Atlanta. Atlanta 30th, so 3rd fewest fantasy points to the running back spot. Kamara's been a question mark with Taysom Hill. I think this is Dalvin Cook all day. Again, if you have to make these decisions, congratulations on your fantasy championship because you're probably crushing everybody with these players. Same thing I'm going to say here, Hopkins or Diggs. We'll put up the wide receiver stuff on the left side of the screen for you. DeAndre Hopkins. The Rams, tough matchup, least fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver spot. Stephon Diggs playing against San Francisco 25th, so the 8th fewest. Again, Diggs has been great all year. He's seen the volume all the way through. You're not going to have John Brown in this game. They're going to work the ball to Stephon Diggs. And Arizona is going to work the ball to Hopkins as well. If I had to pick between these two in this week's game, simply because the Rams are the very fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, not because I don't like DeAndre Hopkins, but simply because of the matchup, I probably pick Diggs here. All right, let me scroll back down. Let me see if I've got anything here. I see a response here from, let me get this other thing off the screen, from Trust the Process saying Hill, in my opinion, Cook, no question, he could get 40 points and Diggs. So, yeah, 2 of the 3 were the same. The only one we were different on was the Hill Adams. And let me see what else we got here. I see a no question from Bobby Schmerda. And Bobby, I think you're a return viewer, so welcome back to the stream. If I'm wrong and you're new, then welcome to the stream. But I think you're a return viewer. You say, my starting lineup is Herbert, Kamara, Swift, Jefferson, Thielen, Kelsey, D-Hop, Colts, D, and Daniel Carson, PPR, 10-team league. How do you think it looks before we go into the playoffs? I will say this. I think it looks, and let me see what else you have a follow-up here. We don't have a deadline, So is there anyone you think I should trade or get? And I'm going to go through all these follow-ups first. Saying also, are you worried about Swift in week 14 and going forward with his health? I am worried about his health. I'm not worried once they find out that he's healthy. I think once he's healthy, he's back and he's fine. What I am worried about is they're going to take their time making sure that he's back because they have no reason not to at this point. I do think when he comes back, he's going to get the bulk load of the work there because Detroit is moving on, man. They're ready for next year. They are trying to find out what they need to know about their new players, and that guy is Swift. So, yeah, I mean, you can run Adrian Peterson all day, but you know what you got, and he's not their future. Same with Kerryon Johnson. You know, he's been there. Swift is their guy moving forward. I don't see them sitting him, you know, because of injury concerns once he's fully healthy. I just don't think he'll be back till he's fully healthy. Taking a look at the rest of your lineup, Alvin Kamara, once you get to the playoffs, you're going to be fine. Once Drew Brees is back, it's going to be right back to Kamara, what he's been doing all year long. It's just that time until then. So if you're in a spot where you got a good record, you're going to make your playoffs no matter what, then yeah, like that's a no-brainer. Kamara, you're fine. Swift, you're going to be fine once he gets back. Justin Herbert, I really like. I have picked up Justin Herbert in so many spots this year and just been playing him every week. I think that's a great pickup. Justin Jefferson is great. I think either Jefferson and Thielen, you know, are going to be fine throughout the year. Kelsey is a monster. D. Hopkins is probably your number one receiver. And, you know, and then you've got the option to pick between Jefferson and Thielen as your two every week. The only thing that I might try to see here is check and see what other teams are available on your waiver wire for D, because Indy's D has been more vulnerable than they've been to start the year, and their matchups have not been nearly as good. There are a couple teams that I like in terms of matchups going down the stretch for your playoffs this year. I like Seattle. Take a look at their matchups. They have a lot of great matchups, DST, coming up, and I like Arizona as well. A lot of great matchups. Even Cleveland is a decent team to look at in terms of what they have weeks 15 and 16. I think they have Giants and Jets back-to-back weeks off the top of my head. Those are some teams that I think I would take a look and see who's available in your league. At the very least, if you have room to make a pickup for one of those teams, get them. And even if you don't play them, like let's say the Colts continue to put up big numbers and you want to stick with them, you keep your opponents from playing those teams. Those are the teams that I see is really making a factor when it comes to the playoffs on the defensive side. And now is the time you got to be thinking about that, because if you wait until your playoffs start, you know, to pick up those teams on defense, they're gone, and you're going to end up playing against them. So you don't want to be in that spot. Let me see if there are any follow-ups here. Trevor Lawrence. Oh, that's Mary to Don. I'm sorry, Mary. I'll get back to yours. Bobby Schmerda, I'm following up. I'm checking to you. And let me see. Got you to 150. I think that's trust the process. Thank you. And trust the process. Thank you. I will say by all means, we have a goal of 100 new subscribers here as well. So if you guys want to jump on and subscribe here, we'll take all the subs that you guys can get, helping us move along. This is our first year, obviously, so we are continuing to grow, but do appreciate you guys all being here. I hope, Bobby, tell me if I missed anything on your chats here. I think I got all of them, but I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anything I missed. Let me know if there's anything I missed, but I think I covered them. And hopefully I answered your questions. If I didn't, hit me up with another chat at the bottom here, and I'll be able to find that. But again, thank you, Bobby, for being here. Appreciate you guys being on the stream. Let me do this real quick before I continue with more chats. Let me go ahead, for those of you that might not have our information, and put up a couple of promos for you. This is our main show every Sunday at 12 noon, TFF Live Sunday pregame show. We are streaming live here on our YouTube channel right up until game time. Same deal as this, answering all your fantasy football questions, getting you ready for your matchups each week. So if you guys haven't checked out that show, all of you night owls here at 1242 East Coast, these night shows, I like them as well. But we do have that daytime show right before you get ready for your matchups. So by all means, come on over and check us out tomorrow for that. And then here's the rest of our information. Again, we're the Fantasy Follow. We are a brand new channel on YouTube this year, so we appreciate you finding us. If you haven't done so, if you're new to the stream, or if you're a regular and you haven't done so yet, by all means, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you get those notifications whenever we have new content and as we continue to grow this channel. We are also on Twitter, and that is at the Fantasy Follow, and that's fantasy spelled FNTSY. And you can send us your fantasy football questions there as well during the week using the hashtag AskTFFLive, and we will answer those questions live on our Sunday pregame show. Facebook / The Fantasy Follow, and our website, fantasyfollow.com. So let me get back to the chat. This has been a great night of chat so far. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to put up our main reminder. I got it pinned there at the top for those of you that are looking at your chat, but for me, it's all the way. I got to scroll up. So we'll let you know and remind you that we are here for live chat for the remainder of our stream, answering your fantasy football questions all show. That's what we love to do. We have a lot of other content. We haven't even started talking about other content yet, and that is what this show is called, Saturday Stars. And we take a look at the top matchups tonight in the rest of the games, or all of the games for that matter, for Week 13 between the next couple of days. Not necessarily starts and sits, but they are the top matchups, and we haven't gotten to that yet, which is great. I love answering all the questions, and we will keep doing that as long as we have them. I can do that content anytime. So let me scroll down. Let's see if I've missed any questions here. I think I see the next one here from Marco Rodriguez, looks like is next. Marco, looks like you might be a new viewer to the stream. So welcome, glad to have you here. And Marco, you say Michael Thomas, Justin Jefferson, DJ Chark, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson need 2 and 1 for flex. So we're looking at 3 of these guys. So let's do this. Easiest way to do it is on the left side of your screen. We will put up our graphic that gives you fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver spot, and we will take a look at each one of these matchups. The first one, Atlanta, New Orleans playing against Atlanta. Let's see where Atlanta falls on the wide receivers. They are allowing, I thought they were pretty high. There they are, 4th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. You love the matchup for Thomas. You're hesitant about what's going on with Taysom Hill, but nonetheless, he's probably going to be one of my guys to pick here. Justin Jefferson for Minnesota against Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the 5th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. Don't see how you can go wrong there. I like Jefferson a whole lot. DJ Chark getting the passes caught from Mike Lennon as a quarterback. So questionable quarterback play there in Jacksonville. The matchup is good. Minnesota, the 2nd most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. However, I don't know if I love the situation going on there in Jacksonville. They clearly seem to be kind of, let's just say, looking towards next season at this point. You could expect a lot of run from James Robinson. Not sure if the floor is going to be there for Chark. Amari Cooper with Dallas, I feel he's their guy. They got to try to get him the ball. However, they're playing the Baltimore Ravens. As you see, 29. That is the 4th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. And then Deontay Johnson playing against Washington. Washington 31, the 2nd fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So some not so great matchups down the line there. Thomas and Jefferson are the clear-cut 2 picks as the first 2 to me. Where do you go from there? There are concerns among each of the rest of those 3 guys. Chark is the concern with the quarterback, and Cooper and Deontay is the concern with the matchup. That is tough. I think, wow, probably if I have to trust my gut and what I'm thinking right now, of those 3 guys, Deontay Johnson has probably been the most consistent, and he's probably gotten most consistently the volume in terms of targets there. So given the fact that there is concerns with all 3, I think I try to go with the lesser of the all evils there. I probably trust Deontay Johnson over Chark. Chark has been hurt. The quarterback situation is not great. Team's not going in a great direction there. You guess they're going to have to throw the ball some. Same thing with Dallas. You guess they're going to have to throw the ball some. Pittsburgh's going to throw it. That's all they've been doing all year. It just doesn't matter whether they have leads. They just keep throwing it. So I think that of those 3, I probably trust Deontay Johnson the most. But as I always say, I hope whichever guys you pick, I hope they crush it. And Marco, thank you for being with us. I'm going to scroll down and see if there are any follow-ups from you just to make sure I'm not missing anything, and I don't see any. So I will say again, yep, thank you, Marco, for your question. Hopefully that information helps. And as always, I try to give you some opinions backed up with some information so that you can make the best decision moving forward. So, yeah, I hope whichever guys you pick, hope they crush it. But I like Thomas Jefferson, and I would probably lean towards Johnson there as the next one. All right, let me see what else we got here. Scrolling down, let's see if I'm missing anybody. Let's see. I see trust the process. I'll hit this one up real quick because it looks like you might be out for the night. You said, see you guys, bedtime. Go subscribe to my guy, the Fantasy Follow. Hey, I appreciate that. Subscribe to your channel. Absolutely. This is, there's so much available for fantasy football on YouTube. Like I said, this is a brand new channel. I love listening to fantasy football talk, and that's why I created this for those of you out there who love the same. So by all means, glad to have you guys on the stream, and Trust the Process Football Talk. Thank you for being here. Good luck with all your stuff as well. Let me scroll back down and let me see what else we got here. You say, hope I get to 100 subs. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We continue to grow. We continue to learn, and moving forward, already thinking about, more content. Can't wait for playoff time and what comes there. And let's see, you ask, are you streaming at 12 tomorrow too? Yes, we are live tomorrow for the Sunday pregame show. That is every Sunday, and we take you right up until game time there. The last couple of weeks, we've got a lot of good chat there, but we also give you actives and actives, starts and sits, give you some player updates, recap the last week. So we got a lot of content on that show that we try to get to. So again, thank you guys for being here. And I see a question I haven't gotten to yet, so I'll hit that up next. And it is from A.B. Goldberger. Thank you for being here, A.B. Looks like you might be a new viewer, so we welcome you to the stream. And you say, pick 2 running backs, flex, wide receiver 3. So I'm picking, all right, let me make sure I understand this. Picking 2 running backs, 1 flex, and 1 wide receiver, and you've listed 6. Okay, I got it. All right, so Raheem Mostert, Myles Gaskin, Wayne Gallman, Jonathan Taylor, interesting one there. Deontay Johnson, and Deebo is who you followed up with, Deebo Samuel. All right, so let's start with the running backs. And in order to do that, as I like to do, I will put up this information because fantasy football is all about opinion, but I try to back it up with info as much as possible so that, other than me just saying who I like, I want you guys to be able to take a look and make those decisions right along as well. 2 running backs, Raheem Mostert at home against Buffalo. Buffalo allowing the 10th most fantasy points to the running back spot. I like him a lot tomorrow. I should say Monday, even though I live here in Buffalo and I'm all Bills Mafia and all up here. So certainly rooting for the Bills in terms of real football, but fantasy football is something completely different, and I like Raheem Mostert there. Myles Gaskin playing at home against Cincinnati. Cincinnati currently allowing the 16th most fantasy points to the running back spot. But as I said before, let me follow it up with the other side of that stat, which is Cincinnati allows the 3rd most rushing yards as well. So I think that is certainly a fine spot for Gaskin. Wayne Gallman playing for the New York Football Giants. On the road at Seattle, 4 p.m. Seattle allowing the 15th most fantasy points to the running back spot. So right in the same area. And then this is the interesting one out of these 2. Jonathan Taylor. Certainly Indianapolis has been hard to predict in terms of what happens with their 3 guys there between Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Jordan Wilkins. This game against Houston, the clear matchup favorite. Houston on the left side of your screen, the 2nd most fantasy points to the running back spot. I really like Jonathan Taylor in this game. It's probably going to come down to do you trust that he's going to get enough volume to make it worth the while? There certainly have been some games this year where he hasn't. But let's hold on to Taylor here. Let's assume Mostert, Gaskin, and Taylor. One of those 3. I will leave Wayne Gallman out of the mix, even though there's nothing wrong with making that choice. He's the main guy there. He's going to get the bulk load of the work. The problem is that Seattle might be crushing the Giants, especially when they're starting. Who are they starting back up for Daniel Jones? I see. Now I wrote this down because I kept, for some reason, I kept losing my mind when it came to who their backup quarterback there is. Let me just take a look. No, I wrote it down somewhere. Someone help me in the chat. Who's the backup for the Giants? Somebody will hit me up with that. I know it. I'll probably think of it at some point, but for now, whatever. The point is, it's almost 1 o'clock and I'm losing my mind. But at any rate, the chances are the Giants are going to be way behind in this game. Seattle may just be crushing them, so they might not see the bulk load of the work there. Let me see if anybody hit me up and asked me. No, I don't see it here. Somebody will tell me who the backup is for the New York Giants tomorrow, or I'll look it up at some point myself. At any rate, let's move on to your other players here and see if we can help you out with your wide receivers. Here are the matchups that you're looking at. Deontay Johnson, we just talked about that matchup. Home against Washington, the 2nd fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. Deebo Samuel, who I like because I think he's going to get a ton of work. That is the Buffalo Monday night, 2nd Monday night game. The Bills, also not a great matchup, but a little better at least. The 9th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So I probably will, of these 2, I think I probably like Deebo Samuel more. I don't think Deontay Johnson is a bad choice, but the matchup is much worse. He's probably still going to get plenty of volume. I just feel like after that big game that Deebo had last week, I feel like there's going to be a lot of volume there still for him. So I like that pick there, although I don't think you're wrong to go with Deontay. And I think you certainly are not wrong to be considering him possibly for your flex. So if you start Mostert and Gaskin, let's say those are the two starters, it's down to Gallman, Taylor, or Deontay Johnson for your flex. To me, take a look at who you're playing in terms of your opponent. See if there are any factors on your opponent's side that make a difference in terms of who you might potentially start. Are there any guys, a quarterback on the other side that you're looking to match up against? Is he starting Ben Roethlisberger and you want to protect yourself against the points? Either way, like that's a thought here. But to me, that matchup is awful tough to go against, that Taylor matchup. I think you probably take the chance that he gets the work. And the second most fantasy points to running backs. Even if he doesn't get all the work, he's probably going to get plenty, and there's enough to go around in that backfield. So I like Taylor there. So I'm thinking, again, AB, I always try to give my opinion and back it up with information so that you can make the best decision for your roster. If it was me, or I'll say this, the ones that I'm picking here, I like Mostert and Gaskin. I like Debo for the wide receiver and Taylor for your flex. And certainly if this is a standard league and not PPR, all the more reason to take Taylor, because of the workload that he likely will get there. So that's what I'm going with out of there. By all means, I hope whichever players you pick, crush it, as I always say. And again, thank you, AB, for being with the stream. Looks like you're a new viewer, so glad to have you here. If you have not done so, make sure you get in and hit that subscribe button so that you can get our notifications. As I said, we're a new channel. We don't always come up as high on the searches, but glad you guys found us because we are a little more difficult to find. Bobby Schmerda says, just subscribe, my boy. Appreciate your info. Much love, man, and have a phenomenal night. And best of luck to your team in fantasy. Absolutely. Thank you, Bobby. And again, we thank you guys for being here and hope your teams crush it, team or teams, as many as you have. And as I always say, good luck in fantasy. Absolutely. And Trust the Process says 33 subs. Let's go. Keep running up, brother. Yep. We're getting there. We're trying, but yeah, we're starting from scratch. And by all means, no problem for me. We're running it up and we are growing as we go. Trust the Process. Also question, what is the best day and time to do a live stream? So this is one of the things that obviously I see some other questions here and I will hit those up quickly. But yeah, this is one of the things that I've kind of been tinkering with as we go. And I see AB real quick. Thank you so much. That was very helpful and informative. Drop the sub. Appreciate it. Thank you much, AB. And thank you for being here. Back to this one. This is a feel out process to me. Like best day and time to do a live stream. Like I said, I've done some different times along the way. That Sunday show has been our main show. But some of these late night shows have been, pretty successful. As obviously tonight, you guys have been crushing the chat, and we got a lot of great questions. I mean, I haven't even started on my content yet. So yeah, I don't mind doing a show at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the noon show happens tomorrow at some point, and at some point I have to get ready for that show. So we won't stay on the air all night tonight, but we try to stay with you guys as long as you have questions. So yeah, it's kind of the question about when is the best day and time to do a live stream. That is driven by you, the viewer. You guys dictate what is best. I can enjoy doing a show at 12 noon that leads up to the games. But if you guys enjoy these nighttime shows, then I love adding these nighttime shows to my schedule. So that's why we've done a bunch of these Saturday shows. And it's great to try to look forward and help you with your lineups. And this is obviously a time when a lot of people are thinking those things through. So yeah, it's kind of just a feel out process, and we're doing the same thing here. So for any of you guys out there that are doing this, making videos, obviously, we love to see you here, and all the best to you guys as well. All right, let's move on down here. And I see a new question. Let me scroll up, make sure I didn't miss anybody before I go to this next one. I don't think I did. So we got a new question here from Vansco. Tell me if I'm not saying that right, Vansco, but I think you are new to the stream. So welcome. Glad to have you with us. And you say, hey, man, am I overthinking this? It's a must-win game to stay in the playoffs. PPR, Gaskin over Antonio Gibson. And Trust the Process says Gaskin for sure. I would say, let me see here. I don't see a follow-up from Vasco. To me, this is actually close, and this is the reason. Antonio Gibson has been so good. Here's the left side of your screen, fantasy points to running backs. If this were me, see, this is the thing with going through these questions. Like, this is a tougher decision to make if you are the one making this decision for your team than it is for me sitting here. I know I have Antonio Gibson in a bunch of spots this year, and he's been great. I don't have Gaskin. So, it's not a decision that I potentially have to make for my own. But let's go through all the information to try to get you as much information as possible, because that's what makes the difference here. Miami playing at home against Cincinnati. Again, Cincinnati allowing the 16th most fantasy points to the running back spot, right in the midway spot. But as I said before, they are allowing the third most rushing yards in the league. So when you look at it from that side of things, certainly it's a great matchup for Gaskin. Antonio Gibson on the road against Pittsburgh. Monday night game. Pittsburgh allowing, where are they? The second fewest fantasy points to the running back spot. So yeah, Myles Gaskin, the clear advantage in matchup. In addition, you wouldn't expect anybody else in that backfield to take work away from Gaskin. So if you're in a must-win spot here, like, you probably do have to start Gaskin here. Antonio Gibson has been so good, it's pretty hard to put him on your bench. And I would struggle with putting him on my bench in this same scenario here. But again, you're kind of going for broke at this point. Like, this is your chance to get there when you've got that good of a matchup available to you. It's gonna hurt if you make that switch and Gibson has another great game. But again, it's gonna hurt if you leave Gibson in there and the matchup gets him and Gaskin has a better one. So either way, this is the part of fantasy football that you love. And, you got to make that choice and see what happens and, potentially either win it or it doesn't happen. You always hope it happens, but there's nothing better than taking a chance. There's no better feeling when you take a chance and it works out. But at the flip side of that, it's a pretty bad feeling when you take a chance and it doesn't work out. No, I don't think you're overthinking this. The matchup is a clear advantage to Gaskin. Gibson against Pittsburgh, I think he will be okay. But of those two, Gaskin has probably the better chance to have a bigger game. I hate to say that because Antonio Gibson has been so good. Let me just look at the times. Miami plays in the early window, right? Yeah, they're a 1 o'clock game, so you pretty much can't even wait to see, if you have the lead in your matchup or not, to know which one to do there. Man, it's tough. That's such a tough one. You're must win, so that's why you're thinking that way, and I certainly understand that. I don't fault you if you make that play and go for Gaskin. I also don't fault you if you stick with Gibson because he's been so good. I think either one could work out. Let me see. Trust the process, says Patrick Laird. Yeah, he's really the only other guy that could take some snaps from Gaskin, but I would kind of be surprised if that were to happen because we haven't really seen Patrick Laird in there all that much. We would think we would have seen more of him along the way if that were to be the case. So, again, I'll go back to this original one. And you said because of Gaskin coming back from IR. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But, again, I think if he wasn't ready from IR, they just would have waited on him. They wouldn't have brought him. But I don't know if they were in a situation where they had to activate him. I don't think they had to activate. I don't think that's even a thing. I think they probably had the choice there. So I would think they wouldn't have done it yet if he wasn't ready. Man, I will be watching this one, Vansco. I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. I don't think you're wrong to be thinking about going with Gaskin here, and especially PPR like Gibson, J.D. McKissick, you would think will get more of the passes there in Washington if they are to go that direction. Perhaps Gaskin is able to throw in a few receptions to help pad that floor. Man, this is so have such a difficult time saying one way or another this because I hate to say the one and have the other one go great. And I know you're in the exact same situation, but I'll put it this way. I don't fault you at all for going with Gaskin in this game. And you say, much appreciated. It's a big week for a lot of my teams, and I'm trying to make the right decisions. I absolutely agree. And, hey, we're glad that you're here talking through those decisions with us. I have a lot of those the same decisions in my leagues coming up this weekend. It is tough, especially when you're making that playoff run and you got those must-win situations. So I hope whichever guy you pick crushes it. I'll be watching. I am going to guess that you're going to pick Gaskin to go for in this one. So I'm going to be watching that, and I hope that whichever guy you go with crushes it for you. So thank you again, Vansco, for being with us, and we appreciate it. And again, as I said, if you're new to the stream, go hit that subscribe button while you're here. Help us reach that goal. But by all means, I'm never going to ask somebody to help us reach a goal just for our sake. We hope you enjoy what we're doing here. And if you do, we want to make sure that you get those notifications when we have new content. So thank you for the question, Vansco. All right, let me see if I missed anybody up higher up here in the chat, and I don't think so. I'm going to scroll down, and I see a question from Jay Postman 425, another one of our regulars. Welcome back, Jay Postman 425. And you say I'm making some risky starts in Dobbins and Gaskin this week. Good thing I'm in second place with 2 weeks left until the playoffs. I really don't actually think that Gaskin is necessarily a risky start. I do think Dobbins is a risky start. That Baltimore backfield, all three guys are available. Just no way to know what's going to happen there. And when you look at that matchup, Baltimore, let's see, when do they play? They are in the very last game of the week. Okay, Dallas, the matchups, I'm thinking differently. The matchup's not that bad. 6th most fantasy points to the running back spot. So you're banking on, potentially having enough work to go around in that backfield. I think of those guys, I think Dobbins has seemed to be the guy that's been working his way towards being the guy that they trust the most there. I don't think it will be Edwards. I think it's probably between him and Ingram. So yeah, I can see what you're going with there, playing that matchup and trying to get it that way. I don't think Gaskin is a risky start to me. Yeah, so I don't think those are bad choices at all. Let me see here. And Vansco, you said subscribed and like. That was an easy decision. Well, thank you very much, Vansco. I definitely appreciate it. Glad to have you with us and hope to have you with us on future streams. All right, and let me see, Jay Postman, you follow up. Let me get rid of the left side of the screen for you guys so we don't clutter everything up. And you say, I'm going to decide later if I play Dobbins or Claypool at the end of tomorrow. I definitely don't disagree with that. Obviously, it's a tough matchup for Claypool in that game. Washington is a little bit tougher on the defensive side, but we know Pittsburgh loves to throw the ball. So you have to think there's still a reasonable chance, and you say in your flex, a reasonable chance that he gets enough work to carry the day. We'll see what happens in all of that. But again, that's the luxury of having later games. And especially when you get this far into the season, you're making those runs towards the playoffs. Take advantage of those game times and also take advantage of checking out your opponents. Sometimes you have no-brainer decisions where it doesn't make a difference, but sometimes your decisions can be based on what your opponent has, not only on the waiver wire to pick up players to make sure the other teams don't get them, but also, matching up those players, quarterback to wide receiver, that sort of thing. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that you can do there. Let me see from Vansco, you pop back in here. So one of the biggest things that scares about Gaskin over Gibson is that I'd be putting a lot of faith in the Dolphins against Cincy. Oh, you have a lot of Dolphins players, defense, kicker, tight end, and Gaskin. Yeah, that definitely could make a difference. I'm glad that you said that because that is certainly a consideration in this one. And that could sway my thought a little bit back from where I was before for you. Yeah, I'm gonna be. I hope Vansco that you're. I hope you're back on future streams because I want to know how this one worked out. I want to know if you end up winning this matchup. There's a lot of tough choices here, and I'm in the same boat with a lot of these. I'm very curious about what you end up going with here. Pop back in again another time. Even if it's tomorrow before the game or whatnot, and let me know what you're thinking. I want to watch. I want to watch and see what happens here. I hope that you crush it with these guys for sure. But yeah, I can see where Gibson might be hedging a little bit against all those Dolphins because if that ends up being a bad game for Miami, then you're in a really bad spot. So yeah, that is tough. And Jay Postman backs that up and says, same here, Gaskin, Sanders, Dolphins DST this week. Dolphins DST has been good, so I don't feel bad about them. But yeah, there are so many decisions here to make. It's just, hey, but that's why we love fantasy football, and this is what we all play for, right? If you got a shot at your playoffs, then this is going to be an awesome week to watch football, and that's why we do this. Oops, all right, Bobby, I'll get you in a second. I was trying to click on Fried here, and Fried looks like you might be a new viewer to the stream, so welcome to the stream, and let me see what you say here. You say Shepard, Pittman, Debo, which two do I start? All right, I like this question a lot. Let's take a look. Wide receiver, fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. We'll start out with Sterling Shepard. So nobody has yet jumped in the chat and told me who the backup is for the Giants because it's completely skipping my mind. And I know that I wrote it down somewhere because I knew that I was gonna lose track of who the backup is for New York. Obviously, Daniel Jones is out this week. I'm looking through my notes to try to scramble and see where I wrote this down because I know who it is and I knew who it was, but it's not popping into my head right now. So somebody please tell me who the backup is for the New York Giants. If not, I will look it up on my other screen. Let me look it up right now because I feel like an idiot that I keep saying this over and over again, and I can't even figure out who the backup is. So let's do this. I'm going to look it up real quick. Players, New York Giants. Either way, we know that Daniel Jones is not playing. Sterling Shepard has had a very safe floor because he's had so many targets. So if it weren't for that, I would like him a lot. However, I don't know that I like him because of this situation that they are going to be going with. Of course, Colt McCoy. There it is. I knew I figured out Colt McCoy is the backup. That's what makes me not love Shepard so much in this game. If it wasn't for that, it's a great matchup. Obviously, the Giants, let's see what time they play. Get back to the screen. That helps you out at all. Playing, that's a 4 o'clock game against Seattle. The number one most fantasy points is the wide receiver spot. Obviously, it's a great matchup. It's just a matter of Colt McCoy gets in the ball. Perhaps you go with it anyway because that matchup is so good. Taking a look at the other guys, Indy and Houston, Michael Pittman Jr. That's a 1 p.m. game at Houston. Houston, the 10th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So another good matchup there. Deebo Samuel for San Francisco playing at home to Buffalo, the second Monday night game. Buffalo 24th, so they are the 9th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. I like Deebo in this game. Deebo had such a great game last game, and I think now that he's back from injury, they are going to want to work him in and continue to get him to work there. So I really like him as a start, even though it goes against the matchup. I think that Shepard is probably my next choice of these guys because I don't know how you can go away from that matchup. I think it's too good regardless of who's throwing the ball. With Indy, you're talking about Pittman. You're still talking about Phillip Rivers, which is like, there it is, Jay Postman, Colt McCoy. See, I knew someone would help me out. Colt McCoy, you guys all got my back. I appreciate it. Let me scroll back up to the original question here. The deal is that like in Indy, Houston, if you look at the flip side of this matchup, instead of looking at the wide receiver points, take a look at the running back points. And in Houston is the second most fantasy points to running backs. You got to figure no Will Fuller for Houston. There's a good chance Indy has the lead throughout a lot of this game. They may not need to throw the ball as much. Even if they do, it's still the quarterback play. Do I think that Phillip Rivers is that far above? Obviously, I think he's above Colt McCoy as your backup in New York. Do I think he's that far above based on what he's done all season long? Not necessarily. I'd probably go Shepard and Deebo for these two. I think Deebo has been awful good to not pick as one of these players, and Shepard is the top matchup. So if I'm not going strictly on, obviously if I'm going strictly on matchups, it's Shepard and Pittman. But I like Deebo a lot. I think he's going to be great. I would go Deebo and Shepard here. And let me see if I got a follow-up from you here. It looks like you said that's why I'm debating Shepard because of the backup. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Game times, just checking to see if there's anything you can do here. Giants game is a 4 o'clock game. The Indy game is a 1 o'clock game. And let me see, go back up to the other one. And who's the other one we're looking at? Deebo is that's a Monday night game. So at the very least, I guess you're making that decision either way because if you sit Pittman, you're stuck with the other two. So it's not like you can really wait and make a decision later. Shepard, I'm going to take a look, and here's what I'm going to do because let me go ahead and take this away. Let me go ahead and take this away, and this is what we haven't. This is actually I don't have any problem with this at all. Like we haven't even gotten to the actual content of the show yet, which is our Saturday stars, and those are the players with the best matchups for tomorrow's game. But as you see, Sterling Shepard is one of the guys that I actually prepared a graphic for tonight's show, simply because of that matchup. I think it's one of the best matchups out there. I don't necessarily have him as a start in terms of a start. Like I said, this is not a start-sit show. This is more about just talking about the best matchups. I do my starts and sits tomorrow on the Sunday pregame show. I actually didn't pick Sterling Shepard as one of my top 5 starts, but obviously, clearly it's the best matchup. Just to give a little more backup to that, Seattle has allowed 20 more fantasy points to 12 different wide receivers this year. They've allowed the most passing yards in the league, and Shepard has had 6 or more catches now in 5 straight games. The difference is Seattle has been getting better on D, and it's Colt McCoy. But probably to me, you stick with that matchup in that decision. But again, as I say, I hope whichever guys you pick crush it. I will be watching, and I want to see what happens here, and hope to see you on future streams. But Fried, appreciate you being here, and if you are new to the stream, by all means, if you like what you're doing here, love to have you as a subscriber. Go on and jump in there and make sure you get those notifications when we have new content. All right, let me see what else I got here. I'm going to shuffle through all of these other pieces of information here. Make sure I don't miss anybody. I know some of these chats are you guys chatting it up while we go. Vansco, you said for sure I'll be stopping by a lot more. I think I have a solid team everywhere else, but it's a tough matchup either way. Appreciate it, Vansco. And you say I have Herbert, Jones, Chubb, Adams, Cup starting, Big Ben, Pittman, Hooper, Rams, D on my bench, Gibson, and Gaskin situation. So understand, but if you, go get them and have a great day tomorrow by all means. Sebastian, you have a question here. I think that's the next one that I haven't gotten yet. Tyler Lockett or Devontae Booker, half-point PPR. I like both of these guys. So let's look at the matchups. Wide receiver matchup against the Giants. I do think that the bulk of the coverage goes towards Metcalf in this game. I think that's going to allow Lockett to have a nice day. The Giants currently, where are they on our list? 17th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot, so just at halfway. If you go on the other side of things, Devontae Booker against the Jets. The Jets are 11th most fantasy points to running back spot. To me, this is a situation of who do you trust here? Do you go with your guy that you've been going with all year? That's Lockett, or do you go with the guy that you've probably picked up off the waiver wire? Lockett has had up and down games this year. Booker probably gives you the safer floor unless you think that Jalen Richard is going to take away some of his work. And it's a great matchup against the Jets. You have to imagine that Vegas is going to have the lead, and they're going to be running the ball a lot. On the flip side, Seattle Giants, you have to imagine that Seattle has the lead, and Chris Carson gets a lot of work running the ball, and perhaps that impacts Tyler Lockett. I think this is a toss-up to me. I see trust the process. You say Lockett has become boomer bust. I definitely agree. I've even started thinking towards next year's draft about what's going to change with the way you draft Tyler Lockett. To me, Tyler Lockett has become a flex player. Like, it's hard to start Tyler Lockett as a WR1 or 2 just because you don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be all or nothing, it seems like. So, this is a tough one. Half PPR. The fact that it's half PPR makes me lean towards Booker here. Goal line touches are most likely his. He's probably going to see some pass catching out of the backfield. Lockett's been boomer bust. If you need a big game, let me see what times these are. 4 o'clock Seattle and 1 o'clock. So you got to make that decision. If you need a bigger, if you feel like you need a bigger game, it's probably Lockett. Has the chance to have a bigger game, but probably has a safer floor on the Booker side. So I probably would go. I see most of you guys are saying Booker. Probably would go with the same thing there. I do think it's close. And by all means, like I said, whichever guy, I hope they crush it. But I'm interested. I did pick up Devontae Booker, I think in one of my leagues, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to try to work him in the lineup tomorrow or not. But by all means, I hope that whichever one. I hope Tyler Lockett plays well too, because I have him in a couple of lineups. So I actually need him to hit at this game too. Let me see. Fry says thank you. I saw, but I say no, thank you. Appreciate you being here with us. And you say that you need to win this game for the playoffs. And, yep, there's a lot of people in that boat. Same here. Builder 1K says, oh, shit. I forgot. Should I put in David Johnson over Wayne? I would if it were me. Let me go back to the matchups to make sure I'm not saying anything wrong. But I know that I have David Johnson on a couple of lineups this year, and I'm anticipating playing him tomorrow. Houston, Indianapolis D has been getting hit a little bit worse than they have for most of the season. 19th. In terms of fantasy points to the running back spot, just in the bottom half. Again, Gallman against Seattle. Seattle is the better matchup, not by much, 15th. But again, game script-wise, hard to say. For sure, you would think David Johnson to get some pass catching out of the backfield as well. Probably a toss-up between those two. But, I've liked Johnson all year. I've expected him to play better. You know that without Will Fuller there now, some of that work is going elsewhere. So, I think it's perhaps Johnson here if I had to pick. Bobby Schmerda says, let me know about those 4 wide receivers above. So let me see if I may have missed Bobby up above. Let me scroll up and see what I missed here. I did miss one. Here we go. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate you guys letting me know when I miss these chats. When there are, this is a good problem to have. When there are a lot of chats, it's very easy to miss them. So, Bobby, you ask, rest of the season, who would you take? McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Thielen, or Allen Robinson? A.J. Brown, to me, has been matchup proof. We saw him have that great game against Chicago when pretty much every Bears game this year, I've been taking those wide receivers and making them sits. He still played well. I like A.J. Brown. I think Adam Thielen is probably 1B. Perhaps Thielen and Robinson are close to each other. Thielen has been all over the touchdowns this year. My hesitation with that team is that it's so easy for them to become just a running team in any given game that you can end up with some disappearing games there. Let me see if I see any follow-ups here from you. I do not. So, yeah, I think to me, like A.J., without looking at matchups, I like A.J. Brown a lot. I can't say I'm not looking up there what his matchups are the rest of the way going through the playoffs. And if there are bad ones, certainly that's not popping into my head. I think Allen Robinson is going to be fine. I think he's going to be their guy there in Chicago. I think he's going to be fine. I think Terry McLaurin is going to be fine. I think Adam Thielen is going to be fine. I don't think any one of your guys is in bad shape. So at the very least, you have great players to look to, and you can take a look at matchups and decide what you want to do. But, even despite the fact that Tennessee has Derrick Henry and leans towards the run from time to time, A.J. Brown's been really good. Ryan Tannehill's been very good. The quarterback play out of all of those guys, like Tannehill is probably, I don't know, tell me if you guys agree, Tannehill is probably the guy you trust the most out of those four quarterbacks. Obviously, Alex Smith is a very talented player and glad to see him back after that awful injury, and you hope things continue well for him. Kirk Cousins is hit or miss. Trubisky is hit or miss. So I think out of those four, when you combine those things, I think that A.J. Brown is probably the guy that I like there. But appreciate you for letting me know that I missed that one. So thank you, Bobby, for the chat and looking that back up for me. All right, and Builder 1K, you follow up. Should I flex David Johnson over Tyler Lockett or McLaurin? I would say of these three, I would put McLaurin third because of that matchup against Pittsburgh. I would say it's between Johnson and Lockett. I would probably lean towards Lockett here, partly because we haven't seen David Johnson in a while, and it's hard to say, were Houston to decide to make this a little bit more of a split with Duke Johnson this week, given the fact that it's David Johnson's first game back. I might feel better about Lockett, even though he's been boom or bust. Let me refer to the matchups just to go back to remind myself. So Houston, Indianapolis, Indy 19th fantasy points to running backs. Seattle against the Giants 17th. So the matchups are virtually even. I might, again, given the fact that I see Tyler Lockett as a flex player because of the fact that he's boom or bust, you would assume that you've got two wide receivers you're counting on. You've probably got two running backs you're counting on. I don't remember Builder 1K what format you said this was, but my gut has me leaning towards Tyler Lockett for this one. He's kind of, you hate to say it this way, he's kind of due for another big game. And Seattle certainly does love to throw the ball. Houston, there is a reasonable chance that they are not leading in that game against Indianapolis, so that could change things. My gut here is Lockett, but I would say it's between Lockett and Johnson as you're making that decision. So, again, I hope whichever guy you go with, I hope they crush it. I got a chat here from Cade McWilliams. Cade, looks like you might be a new viewer to the stream, so welcome. And you say, do I trust playing Julio? This is a great question. I don't know if I trust playing Julio. I've got him in the league. I traded for him this year to go out and get him, and now we're all in this spot. Taking a look at the matchups, fantasy points to wide receivers. Obviously, New Orleans defense, they were all over Matt Ryan the last time they played 2 weeks ago. This is a 1 p.m. game. New Orleans is, in terms of what they're allowing to wide receivers, 23. So that is the 10th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. That being said, Julio is such a great player. If he's fully healthy, I think you have to start him. I don't know who you can think about starting in his place that you could potentially feel like you're getting a better situation out of. The thing is that all we had to go on is Julio saying that he feels well. I have a feeling that Julio has been more hurt than we know for this entire season. When you think back to the beginning of the year and the way that Calvin Ridley kind of dominated those early games, even before Julio was out, I have a feeling that he may have been being used a little bit more as a decoy in a lot of those games, and that's why Ridley ended up with such a great start to the year. So, yes, that's a big problem. But I don't know. Let me see. You have a follow-up here. My other options, I'm glad. Thank you for the follow-up because this does help. My other options are Gaskin and Claypool. So you're playing this as a flex. So if we look at Claypool, Pittsburgh home against Washington. The Washington matchup is, you see on the left side of your screen, 31st. So the second fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So the matchup is worse. So I don't know that I would take Claypool over Julio there simply because of the matchup, although Claypool has obviously been very good all year. You could make an argument for Gaskin as a potential to go ahead over Julio here if this is your flex play. Again, Miami at home against Cincinnati. As you see, Cincinnati's 16th most fantasy points to the running back spot. Halfway point, however, the third most rushing yards allowed in the league. So there is certainly an argument to be made there for Gaskin. They are both 1 p.m. games. So I would certainly try to take a look at, see, are there any other factors in play here? Potentially, is your opponent, is there anything going on with your opponent that could make this decision for you? I would probably, Vance Ghost says, I will be buying a Gaskin jersey if he goes off this weekend. A lot of people are probably in that same situation. To go back to your original, I think you gotta watch your reports very closely tomorrow morning before these games. It's going to probably be a game time decision for you at this point. If you start to see reports saying, that nobody has a hesitation with Julio, watching your fantasy shows during the morning, like if they're all like, nobody feels bad about Julio at all, then to me, like Julio is a guy that's, you drafted him highly. He's given you great games when he's been healthy. If he's fully healthy, I think it's hard to not play him. But if you start to hear, well, they're a little bit iffy, they're not sure, then that might make you change your mind to the Gaskin side of things. I think there's definitely an argument there. I probably would not pick Claypool over Julio because of the matchups. Probably the next guy in line to me would be Gaskin. So as you make that decision, keep an eye on those reports. And like I always say, by all means, I hope whoever you pick crushes it. And Cade McWilliams, thank you for being here. Looks like you're a new viewer. So we are glad to have you guys, all of you new viewers on the stream with us tonight. A couple hours into the stream, got a lot of chats still going. Haven't even gotten into the content yet. So let's keep going through all these chats. Let me see who is next here. I don't think I missed any up above, but if I miss one, please let me know. The next one I see here, let me get rid of the left side, is, let me see if I can say this right, Lucius Varenus 44. Hope I said that right. If I did, please tell me. And if I didn't, tell me as well. Your question is, trades go until Monday in my league. And thank you for being on the stream. Again, Lucius, looks like you're a new viewer. Trades go till Monday in my league. Would you give up Thielen and Kupp for Keenan Allen for playoff value? Take a look at your playoff matchups here. This is a move that I would have considered before last week. In fact, I did go out and I made almost the exact same trade in one of my leagues. I traded Antonio Gibson and Cooper Kupp for Keenan Allen a few weeks back. The difference is Austin Eckler significantly took over the volume of targets last week for the Chargers. I don't think that means that Keenan Allen is not going to still return great value, but I do think there's reason to consider not potentially seeing the huge volume of targets that he has seen. Looking at the wide receiver matchups here for the Chargers as we go down the run. Next week, Atlanta. Let me put up the left side of your screen so you can follow along. Next week, they play Atlanta, giving up the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Then they play Las Vegas in week 15, currently giving up the 14th most. And then Denver for your fantasy football championship in week 16, giving up the 22nd. So in the bottom half. The matchups are okay. However, Cooper Kupp actually has a nice run of matchups at the end of this season. So I'm going to call his up and take a look here. So the last week 14 playing the New York Jets. Currently, this is weird. Why did the Jets, they're not in, they're green here. That's strange. The New York Jets are currently allowing the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. That is next week. And then tougher games after that. Washington allowing the 2nd fewest. And then, you know what? This is why I'm looking at the wrong team. I'm looking at Seattle. I'll get this figured out. Disregard. Starting over. LA Rams. Wide receivers. Last 3 games. New England in week 14. Allowing the 18th most. Bottom half. Then the Jets in week 15. 6th most. And then in week 16, the Seattle Seahawks allowing the most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. That is Cooper Kupp. That being said, the last time those two teams played, the Rams and Seattle, we saw Josh Reynolds get all the targets. Not all the targets, but you expected Woods and Kupp to have like a huge game, and they didn't. So who knows what happens there. In terms of Minnesota, I'll look up their playoff run. Let's see what we got here. Wide receivers for Minnesota down the run. Week 14, Tampa Bay. They are 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Week 15, Chicago. Farther down, where are they? Ooh, way down. 3rd fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. Week 16, New Orleans. 23rd, 10th fewest fantasy points to wide receiver spot. So Thielen's matchups down the end of this season are probably the worst out of the 3 of these. Keenan Allen, I like Keenan Allen a whole lot. I have Justin Herbert in a bunch of leagues. In the league where I made the trade for Allen, I have Herbert, so I wanted to have that stack going forward. I think he's going to be fine. But I think that you are potentially giving up a lot if you're giving up both Thielen and Kupp for just Keenan Allen. I would consider possibly taking a look at another area in your roster that you might be able to bolster and seeing if you can add a second player if you do decide to go this route. If you want to give up Thielen and Kupp, perhaps you have a running back on the team that you're looking to trade with that might help you out. Perhaps they have a lot of extra running backs. Whatever the case may be, I would try to see value-wise. Again, with these trades, you're not worried about who wins the trade. You're worried about how I made my team better. I'm guessing you have a lot of wide receivers that are good if you're thinking of trading these two. But I think you could potentially add a second player here and get someone else back. I don't think you're thinking wrong to go with Keenan Allen. I think he's going to be just fine. Just bear in mind that Eckler is going to take some of that workload away as we get down the stretch here as well. So he may not just get the huge bulk load of targets that he's been getting. But I don't think you're wrong to be thinking this. I just think that you can get a little more value if you do make that trade. But by all means, as I always say, whichever guys you end up with, I hope they crush it. And thank you, Lucius, for being with us. Looks like you're a new viewer. So hopefully we'd love to see you on future live streams as well. All right, let me see. Next one in line, I'm going to get to you guys. I see some more down lower here, so I will move along when I can here. Jeremiah Hudson, you say Debo or Pittman. So let's take a look again at the matchups. Wide receiver-wise, Debo Samuel. Let me get back on my other screen to my matchups. Samuel playing for San Francisco against Buffalo. That is a Monday night game. Buffalo currently allowing the 24th. So that is the 9th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So the matchup is a little tougher. However, I like Debo a whole lot, especially coming off that big game last week. I don't think playing Debo is a bad situation for anybody. Pittman has the better matchup of these two. Playing at Houston, 1 o'clock. Houston, the 10th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So again, quarterback wise, I don't see a huge, I know you're playing a backup San Francisco and Rivers for Indianapolis. I think there's a good chance Indianapolis has the lead for a lot of this game and leans more heavily run than perhaps pass here. So I think you might not see as much volume. I think you're going to probably end up seeing a little bit more shootout potential in that Buffalo-San Fran game. Certainly Buffalo has been airing it out a lot of the year. I like Debo a lot. If it were me here, I probably would choose Debo of these two players. I don't think Pittman is a bad choice because of the matchup. But I think Debo had a great game last week. Brandon Ayuk is back this week, so you might see a little bit, but I think he had 13 targets, 11 catches this last game. I expect him to kind of still continue to try to work them very heavily into that offense. I do like Debo a lot. But as I always say, fantasy football, it's all about opinions. I try to give you mine, but also back it up with some information so that you can make that best decision for you. And as always, I hope that whichever guy you pick crushes it. But I think that Debo Samuel is a fine start there. All right, Chris Poncio. And I know, Chris, you're a return viewer, and I don't remember if I'm saying that name right or not, but I hope that I am. So you ask, is Julio playing? And yes, Julio is expected to play. The problem is we've seen him play and try to play through injuries in the past, and there have been a lot of games where Julio starts and doesn't get through the game. So that's the problem is, yes, we expect him to play, but do we know what we're going to get from him? Not necessarily. And it is, again, a tough matchup against New Orleans. So there are a lot of difficult things to look at there. But yes, we do expect Julio to play, and I do see some of you guys followed up with that. So thank you guys for following up as well. We hit these others. Lucius, who say, I appreciate the insight there. Thanks. And I say, no, thank you, because without you guys here on chat, I can give you lots of content, but I'd rather talk to you guys than just talk, or rather talk with you guys than just talk to you. And at 1:30 in the morning, perhaps I can even figure out how to talk properly. Jeremiah Hudson says, appreciate you. No, thank you for being here, Jeremiah Hudson. Appreciate all you guys being on the chat. Vansco, you have a chat here that says, who would you pick between Kupp, Chark, and Deontay Johnson this week? All right. Left side of the screen, fantasy points to wide receivers. Let's see. Cooper Kupp playing for the Rams against Arizona. Arizona allowing the 12th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. DJ Chark, I'm very hesitant with because of the situation right now in Jacksonville. Mike Glennon, your quarterback. Chark has been hurt. Minnesota certainly is a great matchup. Second most fantasy points, as you see, to wide receivers. However, I have no idea what you're going to get out of Jacksonville this week. I have no idea how those targets are going to be worked out amongst all of their receivers. Clearly, James Robinson has been great. He's going to continue to see a lot of work. I'm very hesitant with DJ Chark. I know the matchup is there. Some of you may like the matchup and decide to go that way. I don't know if I feel that way for myself personally. Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh against Washington. This is the early Monday night game. Again, a tough matchup. Washington, as you see, second fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. To me, of those three, I know it's been hit or miss with the Rams this year. I know Jared Goff has been hit or miss as a quarterback. I probably trust Cooper Kupp the most out of these guys. I do think Patrick Peterson probably follows Robert Woods in this game. Cooper Kupp out of the slot potentially has the potential there. He's been so up and down, and I wrote this down in my notes. I do have Cooper Kupp. He will be among my top 5 starts tomorrow on our Sunday pregame show. Let's see. Arizona, they've given up 16 or more fantasy points 10 times this year. 13th most passing yards allowed in the league. Kupp in 2 games last year against Arizona, he did average 20.9 fantasy points in those 2 games. He has, in the past 4 games, had 11 catches twice in those 4 games, but the other ones have been nowhere near that volume. So maybe a little more difficult to trust him there, but I do think of those guys, Deontay because of the tough matchup and Chark because of the concerns with quarterback and just overall team situation. Think of those 3, I probably trust Kupp the most. And again, thank you, Vansco, for being on the stream. I do see a follow-up, and you say I concur. I had Kupp penciled in, and you appreciate the validation. By all means, this is what we love to do. We love to talk fantasy football. And let me get the left side of the screen out of the way here so we can get your question. What are the chances Mark Andrews plays Tuesday? I could start Mark Andrews over Gesicki in a perfect world. I think that, again, this is a situation we talked about last week when we didn't know if that game was going to take place. I think in any one of these situations, you err towards the player that you know and you're confident is going to play. If you have a question that a game is not going to take place or a player is not going to be cleared to play in that game, I think it's awful tough to start him, unless you are in a league where you're, already locked in for the playoffs and it's not that big a deal. If you're fighting for the playoffs at this point and you end up with a 0, that's crushing. I mean, you're talking about the very last game of the week, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. If you have potentially, I would say this, if you don't want to play, if you don't feel comfortable playing Gesicki, I can't blame you there because he has been really up and down this year. You do have some options potentially on your waiver wire. Perhaps there's nobody out there that has taken a look at Jordan Reed. He's playing in the second Monday night game against Buffalo. If you want to take that chance and go with Mark Andrews, I would back yourself up. Go out in that waiver wire, see if Jordan Reed is available because I think he's going to return plenty of value in that Buffalo game. Buffalo has been giving up fantasy points to the tight end spot. I'll put it up on the screen. They are the 6th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. Jordan Reed, 6 targets each of the last 2 weeks. I think he will return some value for you there. So I think that if you decide to take that chance on Andrews, which certainly, that might be, depending on your situation, that might be worth it. If you have a spot on your bench, I would go out and see if Jordan Reed is available. I think that's a fine player to plug in there, potentially even just as good as Mike Gesicki, potentially right in line. The matchup for Gesicki is probably a little bit better. Cincinnati is very high in terms of tight end points. Let me take a look. Cincinnati allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. Take a look at my notes because I know I did research Gaskin. It's a potential start sit this week. I didn't make him a start, but I did research him. Cincinnati has allowed 17 or more fantasy points 4 times in the last 5 games. They have, I'm sorry, that's Myles Gaskin. How about, not Myles Gaskin, how about Mike Gesicki? Same game. 10 or more fantasy points 7 times this year allowed by Cincinnati. They did give up 129 yards to Evan Ingram last week. You all know my feelings on Evan Ingram. Never know when to start him. He had a huge game against them last week. And then in terms of Gesicki, last week against the Jets, it was 5 targets, 2 catches, 35 yards, 1 touchdown. So, Gesicki has been just kind of like all year long. I do think that I can't say that I would love like Gesicki over a guy like Reed. And I do see your follow-up. So you say Reed is gone. So unfortunately that doesn't help. Hooper. Yeah, Hooper's still, you're taking a chance with Hooper. Now, if it helps, I do have Hooper as one of my starts for tomorrow. I have him as my number 3 start against Tennessee, giving up the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends. But only 2 targets last week, 2 catches, 13 yards. He hit a touchdown. It was 9.3 fantasy points against Jacksonville. I have a gut that Hooper finds the end zone tomorrow, but it's certainly more difficult to count on. I see your dilemma here because, you hope to play Mark Andrews if you can in that spot. Keep an eye on your reports. I can't say that I've seen one recently that said he was cleared, but I can't say that I've seen one that said he wasn't. So I would say keep an eye on those reports, and you're probably stuck with a decision. But ending up with a 0 is awful tough, and you certainly don't want that spot. So for me, I know I've done that with earlier games. I sat Travis Kelce the week that the Kansas City game might not have happened. I ended up paying for it. So yeah, I understand both sides of that, but I felt like that it was worth it, because if you end up with a 0 and you can't win a matchup that you need for the playoffs, by a point or 2, and sitting there with a 0 in your lineup. So yeah, obviously I understand the decision. I hope it works out for whichever way you go. But I think it's definitely worth consideration to go elsewhere. Check out those reports to make sure. And thank you again, Vansco, for the chat. And I think I made it through all these chats, and this was awesome. Love talking with you guys, and it certainly is great. And you know what? I have in the chat, I have pinned at the top that the live chat is open. But in terms of my streaming service here, we've had so many chats tonight, and I did not realize this would happen. It actually has gone away, so I can't even put back up on the screen to remind you guys that the live chat is open. But I will trust that you see that chat that's pinned right at the top, and you know that our live chat is open. In the meantime, this is the TFF Live Saturday Stars Show. Before I do this, let me remind all you guys, along with thanking you for being here, that tomorrow is our Sunday pregame show. We're here every Sunday at 12 noon. Take you right up until game time, answering all your fantasy football questions, getting you ready for your matchups each week. So by all means, if you haven't checked out our Sunday show before, feel free to join us tomorrow. We'll have a ton of content to go through with you, and we'll put up the rest of our information here. We are the Fantasy Follow. We are a brand new YouTube channel this year. We thank you for finding us as a new channel. We don't come up quite as high in the searches, so we appreciate you working hard to find us. And for those of you that haven't, please make sure and go ahead and subscribe so you can get those notifications whenever we have new content. We are also available on Twitter at the Fantasy Follow, and that is spelled fantasy, spelled FNTSY. And you can also send us your fantasy football questions to our Twitter account during the week using the hashtag AskTFFLive, and we will answer those questions live on our Sunday pregame show, in addition to all of our chats that we go through. Also, Facebook/the Fantasy Follow, and the website, fantasyfollow.com. All right, with no further ado, this show is called Saturday Stars, TFF Live Saturday Stars. And let's go through with you the content of tonight's show that we haven't gotten to yet. So let's run through Saturday Stars. And this is not a start-sit show. I do the start-sits tomorrow on the Sunday pregame show. What this is a rundown of the top matchups to look for. This is not necessarily ranked by how I feel they're going to play this weekend, but this is in order of how good of a matchup you have to look for. So starting at the top, this is not the right week. This is last week. That's week 12. See how this goes here? When you don't get to the content until 1:41 a.m., then sometimes you don't hit the right buttons. Let's try this one. Taysom Hill, our first Saturday Star player with the top matchup tomorrow, playing at the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta currently allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. Atlanta 24-plus fantasy points 6 times this year, allowing the 2nd most passing yards in the league. Hill, in their last game 2 weeks ago, it was 233 yards passing, no touchdowns, but 49 rush yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 24.22 fantasy points, still looking for his first passing touchdown but he has averaged 21.37 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. Taysom Hill, a Saturday star, top matchup for this weekend. Next guy we have with a top matchup, Saturday star, it's Kirk Cousins playing versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. They've given up 24-plus fantasy points 6 times this year and are allowing the 4th most passing yards in the league. Cousins has had 22 or more fantasy points each of his last 2 games, and he did have his most passing attempts of the year last week. That was 45 versus Carolina. So I have Kirk Cousins as a Saturday star, one of the top matchups for this weekend at the quarterback spot. Next guy on the list, this is a guy who we've talked about before as having top matchups, but we've seen kind of up and down fantasy production, and that's Derek Carr from Las Vegas Raiders playing against the New York Jets at New York this week. The Jets currently allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. They have given up 24-plus fantasy points 5 times this year and 5 300-plus yard passers over the course of the season. They are allowing the 3rd most passing yards in the league. Carr, 2 of his last 3 games have been under 8 fantasy points. A rough game last week. You have to think they're looking to bounce back this week. 1.60 fantasy points against Atlanta, a team that's been allowing fantasy points all year long. So obviously you don't love the production that you've seen from Carr, but nonetheless, we include him as a Saturday star because the matchup is there. Like I said, this isn't a start-sit necessarily, but I do think that there is argument there based on the matchup. So Derek Carr, one of our Saturday stars. All right, and the last guy that we have, top matchup for this weekend at the quarterback spot, is Baker Mayfield playing at the Tennessee Titans. They are currently allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the quarterback position, 20 more fantasy points 4 times this year, and they allowed 32.10 combined fantasy points last week to Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett from the Colts. Mayfield, 2 touchdowns last week at Jacksonville. That was his first time with 2 touchdowns since week 7, so certainly a little bit of a better game. A guy it's difficult to trust, obviously, at this point because he's been hit or miss with the quarterback spot. But again, this is not a start-sit list. This is the Saturday Stars top matchups, and Baker Mayfield, the matchup is there. So if you needed a quarterback potentially to stream or a 2 QB league superflex, Baker Mayfield does have that matchup advantage, Saturday Star top matchup for this weekend. All right, moving on over to the wide receiver spot. And the top matchup here this week, it's Sterling Shepard for the New York Giants playing at the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, we know what Seattle has allowed all year long. They're giving up the most fantasy points to the wide receiver position this season. 20-plus fantasy points to 12 different wide receivers this year and allowing the most passing yards in the league. Shepard, obviously, Colt McCoy throwing the football this week. Thank you guys for reminding me who the quarterback was. Finally got that sorted out. That is a downgrade for sure. But however, Sterling Shepard has had 6 or more receptions each of the last 5 games. So the floor has been there based on the workload he's seen. We will see what happens in this game. Next guy on the list as a Saturday star, it's Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson for the Minnesota Vikings playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. They have given up 15 or more 12 times this year and 21 or more 5 times, currently allowing the 4th most passing yards in the league. I like Jefferson a lot this weekend. Obviously, Adam Thielen, you have to like him as well. But Thielen's a little bit of an auto start, so we talk about Jefferson here. For him, 21 or more fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games, and he's had 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. I think this is a very nice spot here for Justin Jefferson. I've got him as a Saturday star, top matchup for this weekend. Let me jump over here to the chat as I do see some chat. So this is what we do here. So I want to take a look and see if we got questions. We've got just some chat to go along with. So J Postman 425, hopefully I won't regret starting Herbert over Lamar Jackson this week if he plays. That is a little bit of a tricky choice, but obviously Herbert's been very good, and Jackson's probably been a little bit more up and down of the 2. And clearly Jackson has missed a lot of practice time in the last couple of weeks. Can't fault you for thinking about Herbert there. And Vansko, you say I'm going with Herbert over Big Ben. I would agree with that. J Postman 425, I hope Bill doesn't make me regret it. Patriots rookie against rookie quarterbacks do make me nervous. Understandable, but Justin Herbert's been very good this year. I certainly hope I have him in like just about tons of leagues at this point because picking him up off the waiver wire and when a player's been that great, he ends up as my starter. So I hope he's playing well too. And I actually have the same exact situation in one of my leagues where I have Herbert and Roethlisberger, and I will be going with Herbert as well. So I am right there with you. All right. I didn't even see that one. Popped right in there. Vansko, exactly. And Lamar has a pretty tasty matchup. So if he's playing, I might swap them out. Good. There's certainly a lot of options there for you guys. So, yeah, absolutely. I understand all these choices as well. And obviously, as you make that playoff push, those decisions become even more critical along the way. So, as I always say, whichever guys you go with, hope they crush it. All right, taking a look at a couple more Saturday stars as we go down this list. Sitting at the wide receiver spot here, I got Marquise Brown from the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of Lamar Jackson and that matchup, playing against the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas currently allowing the third most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. They've given up 15-plus fantasy points 15 times this year, just 15 times. And they've given up 100 or more receiving yards 6 times. Ironically, still allowing the 12th fewest passing yards in the league. Don't know how that's possible, but that is what the stats say. Marquise Brown had a little bit of a breakout game last week with Robert Griffin there as his quarterback. 8 targets, 4 catches, 85 yards. I shouldn't say breakout because we know who Marquise Brown is, but it's certainly been up and down. 85 yards and a touchdown. That was 18.5 fantasy points last week. I do think that Marquise Brown is a good start here. I would not hesitate after the week he had last week. I have to think that there is potential, certainly against Dallas, as with any other team, to have big plays, and Marquise Brown is certainly that guy for that offense. So I do like Marquise Brown as a Saturday star, a top matchup for this weekend. All right, the next guy is clearly the exact same guy all over again, so I don't even know why I have the same graphic loaded twice, so you can disregard that. But, this is what we do, live streaming. This is live show, so whatever happens at this point happens. All right, we got Nelson Aguilar as a Saturday star top matchup. Obviously, Aguilar is, to me, it's like an iffy pick, but the matchup is there. And again, that's what we're talking about here. This isn't a start-sit list. This is talking about the top matchups for the weekend. And playing at the New York Jets, they're allowing the 6th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. They've given up 16-plus fantasy points 12 times this year and are allowing the 3rd most passing yards in the league. Aguilar, over his last 2 games, a total of 11 catches, 142 yards. We've seen him start to pick it up, although we've seen hit or miss play from Derek Carr. So, hard to say what you're going to get here, but Aguilar is certainly a guy that you can make an argument for. By all means, the matchup is there, and that's why we call him a Saturday star. Next guy on the list is the guy you might feel more comfortable with. That's Allen Robinson for the Chicago Bears, playing against the Detroit Lions. That's a home game. The Lions allowing the 9th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. They've given up 20-plus fantasy points 7 times this year and 3 times in the last 2 weeks, allowing the 7th most passing yards in the league. And Robinson, in their first matchup in week 1, had 74 yards, 5 catches, no touchdowns, but it was 9 targets, 12.3 fantasy points. And he has seen, last week against Green Bay, he saw 13 targets, 8 catches, 74 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was a very nice day, 27.4 fantasy points. So I would expect Allen Robinson to continue his solid play, even with Mitchell Trubisky there as the quarterback. So I have Allen Robinson as a Saturday star top matchup for this weekend. And that is all of the wide receivers that I have here. Let me check the chat here to see if I got another question here. And I do. And it is from Noah. Noah, thank you for being on the stream. And you say Dobbins, Claypool, or Gallman, flex PPR, pick one. All right, so let's do this. We will start with Claypool. And I'm going to try to remember where I left off. But we will start with Claypool in terms of the matchup. So Baltimore, that is the very last game of the week against Dallas, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. Dallas allowing not Baltimore. This is Pittsburgh. My bad. Pittsburgh playing against Washington. Monday, the first Monday night game, 5 o'clock East Coast time. Washington. The matchup number is the 2nd fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. Let's compare the running back side with Dobbins. The matchup is better here for Baltimore. Dallas allowing the 6th most fantasy points to the running back spot. Obviously, you've got more of a situation there in terms of more guys to worry about between Dobbins, Ingram, and Edwards. Wayne Gallman has the backfield basically to himself for the Giants, and playing against Seattle, the matchup is not terrible, 15th, which is right at the halfway point. So I think if you're looking at matchups, you probably are going to eliminate Claypool from this decision. Even though he's been great, there are a lot of mouths to feed there. Certainly some of them are probably going to be just fine, but matchup-wise, it is not probably as beneficial as the other two might be. The matchup, it's clearly there for Dobbins. Is there going to be enough volume there? to carry the day. I think he's probably the most likely of the three guys to have the best day, but you're pinning your hopes on likely versus with Wayne Gallman, you expect him to be the guy that has the bulk of the work there. And I'm going to check Wayne Gallman's recent production just because I don't want to be telling you some place to go that's a bad choice. But I think my gut out of these players is leaning towards Wayne Gallman at this point. Why in the world? So sometimes this computer doesn't like to cooperate when I type stuff in, but this time it seems like it did. So here's Wayne Gallman the last few weeks. So in terms of production, I'm looking on a half-point PPR screen, and he has not had under double digits in fantasy points in a half point in the last 5 games that he's played. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns in the last 5 weeks. Every game since week 7, he's had at least 1 touchdown. So he's certainly been playing great. Last week, 24 rush attempts, 94 yards against Cincinnati and a touchdown. Again, it doesn't show me the amount of catches that he had, but in terms of half-point PPR, his numbers for the last 5 are 13-9, 12-7, 14-2, 18-5, and 6-6. So you've seen consistent production there. You don't have the worries that you have in Baltimore with the other potential running backs in the mix there. So I think it's a safer pick, and the matchup that Claypool has certainly is a more risky pick there. So of these 3, I think I'm probably leaning towards Gallman. Again, my goal with all of these, as always here, is to kind of give you guys not just my opinion, but some information to back it up. And that's why I wanted to look up to actually see Gallman's numbers to kind of validate what I was saying there. I think that out of those 3 players, Gallman's not the guy that's most known by any means, but when you kind of analyze what he's been doing, certainly the production's been there. And you said it's a PPR, so that's my thought is, potentially in a PPR, could Claypool possibly be more consideration? Gallman's probably going to, again, I didn't look up to see the pass catches for Gallman, but being that he's basically the only, get Deion Lewis there, and I don't know that there's anybody else available that's playing for the Giants. My gut probably goes with Gallman here. But again, like I said, this is all opinion, and I try to present you with some information to back it up. But by all means, trust your gut. You know your roster very well. But I think that Wayne Gallman is probably a fine start. And you say, awesome, thanks, bro. And I say, no, thank you, Noah, for being here. I do think you're a return viewer, Noah. I think that I do recognize you from before. So certainly glad to have you back on the stream. If I'm wrong and you're a new viewer, then we absolutely hope to see you on future streams. And I hope that whichever guy you go with, I hope they crush it. All right, jumping back over to the Saturday Stars portion of our show. And we are on to the running back position. And let me just jump back over the chat to see. And yep, you said, yep, I always come watch. I thought I recognized the name. So glad to have you back, Noah. Appreciate all of you regulars on the stream as we continue to grow. It's good to be able to talk to you same guys week after week and hopefully see how you guys are doing as the years go along, or as the matchups go along, I should say. All right, taking a look at the Saturday Stars at the running back spot. Again, this is not a start-sit list. I'll do the start-sits tomorrow, or actually later on today at this point on the Sunday pregame show coming up at 12 noon. So they're not ranked in order of how I feel these guys are going to play tomorrow. This is simply the list of the top matchups for the weekend. And the first guy we have here is David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears. We saw him have a very nice game last week against Green Bay. 103 yards rushing, no touchdowns on the ground, but he added 5 catches, 42 yards, I believe that is what I wrote, and a touchdown last week. So a very nice game there. And again, a very nice matchup this week. The Lions allowing the most fantasy points to the running back spot. They've given up 17 plus fantasy points 10 times this year. Also allowing the 5th most rushing yards in the league. These teams did play once already this year. It was week 1. Montgomery had 64 yards, no touchdowns, 8.4 fantasy points. I believe that that was before the injury suffered to Tariq Cohen in that game. So certainly Montgomery is the main guy getting the workload there. I like the matchup again for David Montgomery. He's a Saturday star, one of the top matchups for the weekend, and look for him to have another nice game. The next guy I got on the list here, this is an interesting one to me. Now, the guy I selected to go on the list here is Nyheim Hines. Certainly, there's an argument for pretty much all of the running backs for Indianapolis. I think Jonathan Taylor has a great argument for the best matchup this weekend out of these guys. But I did include Hines because he has been playing well, and we haven't seen Taylor quite as much recently. Nonetheless, playing against the Houston Texans, that game in Houston, they are allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to the running back spot. They've given up 15 plus fantasy points 10 times this year, allowing the second most rushing yards in the league. Hines has had 17 or more fantasy points now in 3 of the last 5 games. Again, some of these games have been without the full complement of their players in the backfield, but nonetheless, he has been playing well. He has started to emerge some there. I think Jonathan Taylor is also going to have a nice day. But I think if you have Nyheim Hines and you're in a spot where you need to play him potentially as your flex, I think there's going to be plenty to go around in this game. It's a great matchup, and Hines has been playing well. So I did include Nyheim Hines as a Saturday Star top matchup for this weekend as well. All right, this next guy I've got, this is another interesting one to me because I can't understand the situation in Philadelphia when you look at the usage for Miles Sanders that has been going down. He only saw 50% of the rush attempts last week for that team. I know Boston Scott is there, another guy is Corey Clement. But I don't know how this is your top guy and he only has 6 rushes in a game. It doesn't make sense to me. This is a great matchup. Green Bay allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to the running back spot. So this is a huge chance for a bounce back game for Miles Sanders. I think if you have him in your lineup, I don't know how it feels like you have to trust him at this point, despite the way it's been going there. Like if Philadelphia, if you're listening out there, you got to get you guys, like your best players, you got to get them the ball here. Like Miles Sanders has to carry your team a little bit. Like obviously so much struggles from Carson Wentz at this point. I know there are a lot of guys coming back. But you know, you got to get Miles Sanders in the mix. Green Bay, 15 plus fantasy points, 8 times in the last 9 games. They've allowed 90 or more rushing yards 5 times in the last 7 games. They're actually allowing the 14th fewest rushing yards in the league, but at the same time, the 3rd most fantasy points. So that tells you that there's been production in terms of touchdowns and also pass catching that have helped that number. I think Miles Sanders is there. I think this is a great matchup. He's actually going to be my number 2 start tomorrow. I know it feels like you're somewhat saying, well, what do we expect from Sanders because of what we've seen? I just feel like this is a spot for him to break out and get back into the mix there for Philadelphia. I think you have to kind of go with that matchup at this point. That's why I have him as a Saturday Star, again, at the running back spot, Miles Sanders. Next guy I have here is a guy I've had here a whole bunch this year, and I know he's been down a little bit in the past couple of weeks. That's Kareem Hunt for the Cleveland Browns, playing at the Tennessee Titans. They're allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the running back spot. They've given up 19 plus fantasy points to 5 different running backs this year. They're allowing the 16th most rushing yards in the league, so right in the middle. Hunt only 1 touchdown in his last 4 games, and he's been under 10 fantasy points each of the last 2 weeks. Again, this is the situation where the matchup is there. I know Nick Chubb is there, and I know Nick Chubb has been great since he's came back. I still think there's plenty for both of these guys here in this matchup. And potentially in a game where, well, you know, both teams are probably going to run the ball quite a bit in this game, so I don't know that it's necessarily a higher scoring game, but I think Hunt still has the value as a pass catcher out of the backfield there. I still think there's plenty to go around. Perhaps, you know, you're starting to be a little more hesitant with Hunt than you have in past weeks. I think if you got him and you're playing him as a flex, I think you continue to play him. I think the matchup's there, and I think he can certainly continue to have a nice game. So I still have Kareem Hunt as a Saturday Star top matchup for this weekend. All right, that's my run of running backs in terms of the Saturday Stars. So let me flip the page over here, and we'll take a look finally at the tight end spot. Saturday Stars. Again, this is not a start-sit list. This isn't a ranking of where I feel they're going to be for the weekend. I'll do that on tomorrow's pregame show. This is just a rundown of the top matchups, and certainly the first guy here is a guy that's been great all year. And I smell what the Hawk is cooking. It's T.J. Hockenson for the Detroit Lions, playing at the Chicago Bears. Chicago on the 3rd most fantasy points to the tight end spot. Again, you've got no Kenny Golladay in this game. You've also got no DeAndre Swift. Matt Stafford has been a little banged up. You would expect Hockenson to continue to see a good amount of volume in terms of targets there. And I'm going to have, this is my, I guess I didn't have a segment called Bold Predictions, but Hockenson has had, let me see where I wrote it down here. No touchdowns since week 9. I feel like that's, I don't think he's had a touchdown since week 9, but in their first game, he did have 56 yards, 5 catches and a touchdown, 16.6 fantasy points. That was in week 1. Last week versus Houston, 8 targets, 89 yards, no touchdowns there. I do feel that T.J. Hockenson finds the end zone this weekend. In fact, I feel that T.J. Hockenson scores 2 touchdowns this weekend. Don't know why I have that gut feeling, but I just do. I think the potential is there. And in terms of Chicago, they've given up 11-plus fantasy points 6 times this year. They've given up 8 touchdowns to tight ends over the course of the season. I like T.J. Hockenson. I've liked him all year. and I like him this weekend as a Saturday star. He's certainly got a great matchup for this weekend. Next guy is a guy that we've talked about already some on this show, and that's Mike Gesicki for the Miami Dolphins, playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. They are allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. They've given up 10 or more fantasy points, 7 different tight ends this year. And we saw last week Evan Ingram, 129 yards against them. Gesicki last week against the Jets, 5 targets, just 2 catches, 35 yards, did have a touchdown. So it's been a little bit up and down year for Gesicki, but this is a nice matchup. So, obviously if you're streaming tight ends, it's a difficult proposition every week. Here's a guy who has the matchup, and who knows what happens from there. I mean, that's just what happens at the tight end spot. But nonetheless, a Saturday star top matchup for this weekend at the tight end spot. Next guy I've got is Jordan Reed for the San Francisco 49ers. Playing against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo has been vulnerable to tight ends this year. They're giving up the 6th most fantasy points to that position. 11 or more fantasy points 6 times this year they've allowed. Reed has had 6 targets each of the last 2 games. I think this is a nice spot for him to have a nice game this weekend for San Francisco, and that is the Monday night game. Obviously, that is the second Monday night game at 8 o'clock, playing against my Buffalo Bills. So Reed, if you want to have a good game, then great. Just don't make it too good. Because obviously some of us, we still got to root for our real teams too, along with this fantasy thing that we do. But nonetheless, Jordan Reed, a Saturday star. I guess at this point it's 2 a.m. on the East Coast. It could be a Sunday star, but Saturday star top matchup for this weekend at the tight end spot. And we've got Kyle Rudolph for the Minnesota Vikings playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are giving up the 7th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. 9 touchdowns to tight ends this year allowed by Jacksonville. Rudolph last week with no Irv Smith, and again, no Irv Smith this week. He's already been announced as out. 8 targets. I hope I'm right in saying that. I'm fairly confident that I'm saying that right. 8 targets, 7 catches, 68 yards last week. 13.8 fantasy points. That was against Carolina. So a kind of a game that we haven't seen in a while for Kyle Rudolph. We haven't seen all that much production from him. But certainly there's a case to be made for Kyle Rudolph this week as well. Great matchup, and we saw the production there without Smith. So I've got him as a Saturday star, top matchup at the tight end position. And our final one we've talked about, some of you guys talked about in the chat already tonight. It is Austin Hooper for the Cleveland Browns playing at the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee allowing the 8th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. 12 plus fantasy points to 6 different tight ends this year. Now last week, Hooper just 2 targets, 2 catches, 13 yards, did have a touchdown. It was 9.3 fantasy points. For some reason, I have a gut feeling that Hooper finds the end zone this week. I don't know why that is. Just have that feeling. Doesn't impact the matchup. The matchup is there, and that's why we include him as a Saturday star, a top matchup for this weekend. So we will see what happens again at the tight end spot. And that is all the Saturday stars. We got through all that stuff. A lot of content, a lot of chat, and I'm going to see one more here from Vansco, and it says, "Peace, friend. Going to get some sleep. Gibson has found himself back into my flex, but we'll see how long that lasts. Glad I found you for the future." Absolutely. Thank you, Vansco, for being here. We appreciate all you guys that were in the chat. It's been a great night of fantasy football talk. That's what we love to do here. We appreciate you guys being with us. Like I said, there's a lot of content, and I have no problem pushing that content till later on in the show once we get through all these chats like we did tonight. Because really what we want to do is we want to talk fantasy football with you guys. So we're glad that you guys were on the stream. We will put up one more set of promos before we end this broadcast, starting with the TFF Live Sunday pregame show. We do that every Sunday, streaming right here at 12 noon. Take you right up till game time, answer all your fantasy football questions, and get you ready for your matchups each week. We'll be doing that show in about 10 hours here. So it's later on today. It's no longer tomorrow. But again, for all of you who are the night owls that also might be getting ready for your games at that time, feel free to join us. And then the rest of our information is here for you. We are the Fantasy Follow. We are a brand new channel this year, so we absolutely thank all of you guys. And we know we got some new subscribers tonight, so we definitely appreciate you guys jumping on board with us. And I'm glad that you'll be able to get those notifications whenever we have new content. We continue to work towards our goal of 100 new subscribers. So we appreciate you all being on board. Absolutely. And also we are on Twitter at the Fantasy Follow, and that's fantasy spelled FNTSY. And you can also send your fantasy football questions to our Twitter account during the week using the hashtag AskTFFLive, and we will answer those shows live on our Sunday pregame show. Facebook/The Fantasy Follow and our website, thefantasyfollow.com. All right, that is our show for tonight. We appreciate all you guys for being here. It's been a great night. We had a lot of great chat tonight. We hope that all you guys have a great day of watching football, not only tomorrow, but as we go the next couple of days. By all means, a lot of great matchups, a lot of great games. But, this is playoff push time here at Fantasy Football. So we want you guys to all make that run, whether you're locked in now or whether you're trying to get those final few wins. Want to see you get you there and take that shot at your Fantasy Football Championship. So absolutely, this week is a great week to get started towards that. As we always say, good luck in fantasy. We'll see you next time.